didn't I? Hang on. There we go.
All right, Dash, you
We're
go back
back.
in the corner here. Yes,
We're
right.
back.
Dancing with Dash during the opening, as usual. If you
We're
haven't
here.
seen me say that, it's every week. It's that I have to dance to get woken up from having no sleep from the karaoke session the night before. Every single time we do this show, I've gotten only 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I'm doing that again. I'm maxing out the caffeine. I should be just fine though, as I normally am. Hi, Simon.
Everyone. Hello, everyone. Yeah, we're here. I've had a busy day, so I'm frantically trying to get messages out before the show.
Yes, I know. Usual slamming.
I'm glad I decided to set up the link and everything earlier on this morning because I would not.
As so am I. So I could get all the messages out because I publish to eight different places every time we need to announce the show. So and it's all manual. Boy, if I only had a programming language,
I know.
Only if you could program something, right? To each of the places that I announce this show,
it's like
and post something.
It just reminds me. It's like the mechanic that always drives around in an old banger, right? We never get we're always coding on other people's stuff. You never get a chance to code on your own stuff. Anyway.
The shoemaker's children problem. Yes, right. The shoemaker's children have the worst shoes in town. Yes, I'm very familiar with that principle. Don't look at my website because I don't have any time to update my website for like the last 5 years. So it has nothing about Flutter. It has nothing about Flutter there. It's all Perl.
Right. Let's do the usual things and then we'll get going. So go on, Randall.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. My turn to do this again. So always be nice to everybody. I mean, we're all friends here, so just be nice. Don't post anything adult. Do not promote yourself, advertise yourself. That's only for us to do because we're putting on the show. Don't spam. If you post the same thing multiple times, especially if it's a question, I will take the question out of the queue from the beginning and put it down later, and you just lost your place. But otherwise, just saying the same thing over and over again, you get booted. Come on. We do not permit that in our chat. No harassment of any kind, also very much not permitted. You will be booted from here and as many places as we can influence, which are quite a few. So be careful about that. But above all, do have a good time. We're here having a good time. And things are going well for us generally when we're here, except when we have technical difficulties or can't get the syntax right of something. But otherwise, yes. So we are Simon.
My name's Simon Lightfoot, community leader around Flutter, and I'm also CTO at Dev Angels London, a small development agency based in London. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. And Scott can't be with us today; he's busy working his own things.
Yes.
But Randall, introduce yourself.
I'm here. I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, which means that Google has approved me as one of the 10 people in the United States to publicly represent the actions of the Dart and Flutter community to Google and vice versa, the actions of Google to Dart and Flutter community. I spend a lot of time answering questions. I answer a lot of questions here. Actually, Simon does most of the answering here. But I'm also the question manager, the question magician, they like to call it, where I'm watching the live chat that we have today, where all you people are able to see us interact with us. I'm looking for Q colon at the beginning of a statement. If you put a Q in front of it, I put you in the queue. Oh, there's that horrible pun every week, right? So please do that. Marks it for me. Otherwise, I consider it discussion amongst you all, which does happen as well. And I appreciate that too. There are people answer other people in our chat. And so that's really great. And if you're not part of our live chat, if you're watching this on the stream, I mean, on the downloaded from YouTube later in the week, why don't you come on the live stream? It's so much more fun. We could really use more people in the chat because it'll make it lively. Well, it's already lively anyway. We almost never get to all the questions sometimes. So yeah, anyway, that's enough of that, I guess.
And we also have a guest with us today.
Yes.
Danielle, welcome to the stream.
Hey there again, everybody. Someday I'll actually get promoted to not just be a guest. I'll be a regular. But we'll try to get there at some point. Hi, I'm Danielle Cox. I'm a Flutter developer. I run a team at a startup called Ardley, and we're working mainly on Flutter Web. it don't make a mistake. It really is an application. It's just you happen to get to it through a URL, and that's really kind of neat. I'm also one of the organizers of the Flutteristas. If you all look in the chat, you'll see Steph's in there. She's another one of my organizers. So say hi to Steph, everybody. And yeah, so so yeah, we often have other ones lurking in there too. I see, but yeah, so that sounds great. And I was supposed to be at IO Connect down about an hour from where I live down in Florida, but this week I'm actually up in Seattle, almost as far away in the U.S. as you can get from where I live, and make it.
And just north of me by about 2 hours. So I'll just wave in your general direction there, right behind me. Yes.
Stephanie's come on the show again at some point. That'd be really nice. Haven't seen her in a while.
Of course.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So as Randall was saying, get your questions in front of the queue. We'll repeat this throughout the show. Also, we did some. We'll finish off our live coding from last week, where we started doing like a match card flip thing, something or other like that. And
yeah, that was fun.
See if we can get some Dart 3 stuff in there.
Yeah.
In sort of like the latter half of the show. So we want to kind of try and get the questions in first, and then also I think what we might do is on the latter half maybe allow questions coming in through that piece, because I feel like when people are seeing that live code, it's kind of it triggers something in the head, like what happens if you do this, or how'd you do that, and we can kind of spend some time talking about those things as we go. I think just give it a go.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We have
before we get started, we have a couple of questions, but before we get started, I want to talk about something that's shown up a couple of times in the last week, which is pretty interesting. People are asking what the support will be for Dart 2 now that Dart 3 is out. That is an interesting question, because what you have to consider is this is an open source project. Support in general means the vendor support. The vendor is us. We're the ones supporting Dart 2 and Dart 3. It's not like some magical group in Mountain View that's doing that. And yes, you're free to submit issues to the people in Mountain View, but a lot of what's happening to change Dart and Flutter to make them better is actually coming from us, the community now. And so the support officially is the same as it always has been, which is that the community, including Google as a participant in the community, are going to fix the changes they're going to fix, and they're going to modify it the way they modify it. And so you're really sort of on your own. The nice thing is that because this is all open source, you can contract with a third party to say, I want to stay using Dart 2.19, and I want to, and I get some pop-ups up here. All right, stop that. I want to stay on Dart 2.19, and but I want to, if there's any security problems that show up in Dart 3, I want it backported. You can pay somebody to do that because it's all open source. It's available that way. So that's kind of the neat thing there. Now, a deeper question, and Simon, you can jump in on this one too, is what I'm hearing something in my headset. Simon, talk about the difference between Dart 2 and Dart 3.
I was going to jump in real quick on what Randall was saying too. That I know Matt's a friend of the show, and he runs Flutter Bounty Hunter, so that's an actual organization that's dedicated to doing exactly what Randall just said.
Yeah. So. Somehow my Apple Music popped on and started playing things, so I had to what the hell's going on here? I can't hear myself think. So
you said the magic A word.
I don't know. I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm hearing my own podcast from years ago in my headset. It's like, what? What is this? It was my Geek Cruises Newses podcast from when I was cruising all the time.
I just imagine you think you're having a break with reality. Like, what the fuck?
That's been true all the time. But here's what the point I was trying to make. So Dart has had now 3 different times that it's turned like 45 degrees from what it used to be. Dart started out as a smarter JavaScript. Then we made it strong, and that changed a bunch of things. And that was basically to be able to do Flutter correctly. So that was the Dart 1 to 2 transition. Then we had non-null by default, Dart 2.12, and that changed a bunch of things. And now we have Dart 3, which changes a bunch of things. But when we have those kind of major turns in how Dart is laid out, there's always the question from both sides of the consumer and the producer of Dart libraries and packages. What do you build to? Do you presume your package is only going to be used by, is going to be used by Dart 3 people, so you could go ahead and use the 3 features already? Or are you are you going to start using Dart 3 features, which means that people who aren't migrated won't be able to use your package? So obviously this is a breaking change for every package, their version numbers, but there's the longer issue of at what level do we get support? Do we still keep supporting Dart 2 users? You have thoughts on that, Simon?
Yeah, I was just thinking like at some, to be honest, I feel like you just can't from a community kind of, even with like, it's kind of difficult, right? Because at the end of the day is with software, there's bugs and everything else. You need to keep current. You need to keep your updates coming in. All your dependencies you need to be keeping up to date all the time as best you can.
Right.
You should just be doing that because that makes your code better, right? And your product better, right? Equally speaking about that, though, that can also have its own sets of problems and difficulties and so on, especially if it's a big breaking change, right? But from a community perspective, you already ask enough of the community, right? In a lot of what we're doing. So I think that the asking people to support like a wider range is asking for it. I mean, we did, like, it's a kind of like interesting because when null safety came along, it was like, oh, now we're talking about these new operators, showing people how to use them, and now it's become like the de facto default, right? That much time later. So I suspect probably going to be a deal like we're in a transition period, and then we'll be transitioning to a point where it's like, that's it. At some point, Dart 2 and doing things without, these records and patterns and so on becomes just old, if that kind of makes sense. I mean, now in the de facto
and burdensome. You know, once you start getting used to destructuring and patterns, it's almost feels like stone knives and bearskins, to quote that Star Trek episode.
Yes.
To go back to Dart 2 and go, oh, I can't just pass a tuple down here, huh?
It's kind of interesting when you go. I've had that experience before when you go back to something previous and you had to like maybe change some code. You're like, oh god, did I used to deal with this? Like, you do have that cringe feeling, right?
We had that problem with Perl 5 and Perl 4 because adding objects in Perl 5 really changed the nature of programming in Perl. And so to have to code back to Perl 4 standards for a while was awkward. So I'm very familiar with this process.
Do you know what? I think when I started Perl, it was Perl 5.6. I have in my head like 5 3, 5, 6.
Yeah.
It was
that's when most people joined on. Yeah,
because all the object-oriented stuff came out, and it was like that was the thing, right? Oh, blimey, that's
exponential curve over the years.
Go on.
I was gonna say I resisted Perl for a long time and kept using awk. So
awk was good. I used awk for some pretty large things, and if I've always said that if GNU awk had been out, Larry might not have created Perl, because awk was already the inspiration for Perl, but awk couldn't do some of the things that Larry wanted it to do,
right?
Which is why he created Perl. And it's also why awk to Perl and sed to Perl existed as filters, because Larry had a number of awk and sed existing programs that needed to be run in the new environment, and they were pretty handy. I used awk to Perl and sed to Perl quite a few times. So, and I'm showing my geezer status. Ha ha! Yes.
I was
we have
explaining
some
to
questions coming in. Yeah.
I was explaining
Sorry,
to
go
my
ahead.
intern the other day. I was explaining to my intern the other day where grep came from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, G
Global
/RE
regular
/
expression
P.
print. Yeah.
I think I actually saw a recent video on YouTube, which was the history of computer displays. This new video that came out from Retro Bytes, I think it is. Anyway, it was really interesting because I've used like line editing like on a display. It's not a great interface. It never has been, but that's not the point for it. And it only occurred when I watched the video. Oh, it was originally inspired in Unix for teletype machines because you're doing line printing, right? Because when you change something, you're printing a new line and you new line on the printer. So it's only like a bulb opened over my head. Of course.
It was also useful when you were on like a 300 baud modem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. VI was very painful at 300 baud.
Yes. You had a 300. I was 110 for the first 6 years of my experience on computers. ASR 33, uppercase only teletype, and I programmed in BASIC on that.
This is the geek
You're much older than I am.
Of that kind of like, look at my scar. Look how old I am. I use 300 baud.
Back when I was coding, we didn't have ones and zeros. We only had zeros. We had to make it count.
But the other thing I was going to say about Randall, looking at some of the comments we had early on about him being everywhere, is I'm looking at moving, and so I've been looking at different groups and stuff. Every time I pull up a Flutter group, any local Flutter group anywhere, the very first picture I see is Randall's. Every one of them. Flutter Atlanta, Randall. Yeah. Flutter Brevard County, Randall.
I like to present virtually, given that I have this opportunity to do that for most of the groups while they were in COVID mode. And so it's great because I can be in all these different places and helping all these different people out and meeting a lot of really cool friends, places, people I want to visit. And now they're all moving to in-person meetings only. And it's making me sad because I'm now losing connection with some of the people that I've actually made friends with over the months of COVID. So it's too bad.
To be clear to the audience, we're passing time here for everyone to get their questions in.
Yes.
Sorry.
To be clear, right? We're not just whittling on. I will also just on that point. So we run the Flutter London meetup. That does say London just underneath the logo there. Anyway, and this is something we struggle with as well, right? So moving from that, so going first of all offline to online only during sort of lockdown and everything else. We did some online stuff, and then now transition back to we had a good meeting last month for Flutter London, and it occurred to me then I'm like, we were talking about streaming, but it's so difficult to stream and put on a live event and everything else like every month. It's just a lot, especially with equipment and connections and various other things. You want it to be a great experience for everyone. What you don't want to do is like do this thing and then have a really crappy sort of online experience for people, and like you haven't delivered on that promise. And people are all excited to like listen to the speaker, and then they get like a blurry picture, they can't see the presentation, that kind of thing, right? You don't want that. So yeah, it is tough. What we're probably going to end up doing is doing maybe a flip-flop thing where like every alternative month is like an online thing for the people that can't get to the event in person, even in the UK now. You know, they can actually see that online. So maybe that's kind of like a modality. I think a lot of meetups are probably going to probably have the same issues as us in this sense, right? Like they want to, but it's just really difficult to. So something like that. Anyway, right.
It's also that these meetings are typically held in like a restaurant space or something as well, which is not conducive to having like a live feed coming out of there. Because of all the background noise, you don't hear anybody talking, or you only hear the person that's operating the machine and not any of the neighboring conversations. So in-person meetings definitely have that advantage that you can have multiple threads and essentially the hallway track at these meetings and meetups. But I'm stuck here in my underground bunker, and I don't really have much opportunity to go anywhere. So I kind of have to rely on this wonderful little webcam and the opportunities I get to be on shows like this to hang out and talk.
I thought you're in a crater. That looks like a crater to me behind you.
Oh, this is Crater Lake. This is This is Crater Lake, the deepest lake in the U.S., 1,700 or 1,800 feet, something like that. Crystal clear. You can look all the way down to the bottom of that because there's no rivers in and out of this. It's all just rainwater and evaporation. That's the only way it goes in and out. So it's pretty amazing place. I've been there. Used to go there all the time. It's about a 3-hour drive south of here. So it's our summer vacation spot we used to go to as kids. So
right.
Fun
I
stuff.
think we're gonna jump onto some questions now. And,
we have questions finally. Yes, there we go.
Manspace. Randall, you also engaged in that tweet by Luke on Twitter. What are your views on making styling as extensions, and what is the impact on performance? What is this tweet? So it's obviously about styling.
No, I have to look it up.
I remember seeing it.
Oh, good. Can you either find it or explain it?
I'll look real quick. Sure.
I don't remember. Yeah, I think I was talking about that if you need other color slots and things like that for styling, there's now this thing called theme extension that gets supported the same way themes do and allows you to add extra parameters easily and nicely in a supported way, as long as you follow the protocol, which is you have to implement a copy with and a tween, right? And that if you just do those, it fits in with the rest of the framework properly. So
yeah, it looks a lot like it looks a lot like using the dot kind of syntax with things. So you could say like dot color, dot padding, dot whatever, things like that. And there was some conversation over whether that was a good idea or not. And so I would think that that's probably what MadSpace is maybe kind of wanting to get at. Is that a good way to do it or not? Is it something that's...
Well, if you need it, it is. I mean, that's the thing. Either you map your entire color design into the existing columns, which you should do, by the way, because there are widgets that are looking up those columns, not the ones you add. So be sure to those properties. Sorry, not columns. I'm thinking database. Wow. But those properties. So you want to try to get as much of your design into what Material 3 calls each of those colors. But if you have more than that, theme extensions work fine. And I'm always got a raised eyebrow when somebody says performance, because don't talk about performance until you find it's too slow. Don't micro optimize. You should always, your time as a programmer is far more valuable than any CPU cycles you're going to spend. So, you want to make it your application possible and testable and maintainable. And if what it takes is adding a theme extension, do it. Don't worry about performance until you see that there might need some optimization somewhere.
Simon, I dropped a link to the tweet.
I did. I was literally just trying to dig around and find it. So the one that we're talking about. Oh, Luke Pighetti. Yeah.
I believe that's the one we're talking about.
Oh, Luke Pighetti.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
We'll find out.
If I'm wrong. Yeah.
I don't know. Bring it up and I'll tell you. I don't use text style anymore. Text theming. Text theming can be considered to be broken, and the trouble is there are so many knobs, and so many overlays, and so many undocumented that this particular font is used by this widget. The real recourse to this is learn how to look and drill down into source code, but you shouldn't have to do that for things you're doing every day like theming, and yet you have to. You really have to.
Yeah, I think that I remember originally there's a lot better than it ever used to be, like the material documentation on where this color. So that, like, knowing that this color comes from this theme, this parameter in this theme. If you don't specify it, and if it's not overridden in the tree, and this, that, and the other, that kind of rule set is something that is not discussed enough. But I do find that this is kind of interesting. I do find it a problem that people, the whole idea, like, it's not very often that I would actually do this, and that is override the foreground color, the alignment, the stroke, the font all in one place because I would have a style, right? I would have
Yeah.
a style that I've applied or have accessible to me down my tree, and I can apply that everywhere. It also means that, let's say I want to change the font size of all my headings or the style of all my headings to bold or something like that, then I'm going to be changing it in one place and not have to find every version and realize, oh, I forgot one place and it looks off and I have to go back and fix it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I do get this, but this is the kind of Swift UI like modifier approach, and I think modifiers are great. I think they have their place, but also it definitely kind of depends on where you use it, right?
Well, Luke's been texting a lot or tweeting a lot about Swift UI, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think so doing stuff like this is quite nice, right? Something like this where you're saying I want an extension.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
This should be on text, right? Specific, not on widget. But to say you're adding these like modifiers that this makes this text body, but they could easily also have been just text style body.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. You applied it that way as well.
There's
lots of these things.
And in fact, actually, like on our project, we've got designers that they're out there with in Figma designing all their stuff, and they've got all their styles set up. And so we've been using a product called Supernova that exports out those styles. And so I'm not really using a theme at times because they're telling me what style to use. I'm almost always on a text putting a style in, because I don't. They haven't done it with a theme. They haven't told me this is what a headline is and this is what a So
well, I mean, I don't think you can see this code on the screen. Well, I don't think you can see it, but
I can see
this is the problem, right? This is not the way to do this because each time you apply one of those wrappers that was like text style, foreground color, typeface, so on, font. So that each time
makes a new one.
It's the way to do it. It made a new builder, default text style off, like a default text style.
No,
does the no. Like this adds way too much when you could have just.
You look at your tree and your debugger. It's going to be.
Well, it's not just that. It adds. You adding depth to your depth to your like. This is going to add like what a 20 level deep tree. Because if you have like those 5 properties, 5 times 3 or something, right? 15.
Well, that might be why our friend Madspace was asking about performance.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, don't do this. Don't do
Don't
this.
Don't do this.
Don't do that.
It might be okay for one. Like you're just doing one.
But what you could have done. So let me just. I can show you how I would implement these same modifiers without doing this, and we can do that later if people are interested. Because the thing is, what you can do is you're given a text widget. A text widget on its own is just a configuration of the underlying widget that gets constructed, which means you can just say text dot font, whatever the function is. That font is getting an implicitly implied text widget, and it just captures those parameters, forwards them onto the text widget, and returns a new text widget. You've never increased your hierarchy at all, right? You're now just applying changes to the text widget's properties and augmenting them. So you can maybe construct 5 objects. For those 4 of them, the final one is the one that gets used. 4 get thrown in the trash, right? But that's it. You haven't actually implemented an entire deep hierarchy or tree. We should get Luke
and here's the biggest problem with this stuff, and it's every time we look at abstractions, when we look at frameworks, there are things that you want to be controlled by the same knob, and there are things that you want different knobs for. And it's a difficult art, and sometimes science, but mostly art, to really figure out how to structure something like that. You have to build enough concrete examples to know that the border color on your text form element should be the same as the alert box or something. You got to build enough of them for real to know there should only be one knob for that, not 2. One setting, not 2. And what the Flutter team has wonderfully given us is a zillion knobs. And there are knobs everywhere with different ways of layering them. And again, it's all about trying to get to where you only change one thing to change something of related character in your app. But it's a difficult problem.
How many of the
Yeah.
kids in our audience do you think have ever actually turned a knob for anything?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Which knob?
It has a
it's a
completely
thing on
different
your
connotation here in the
radio.
UK
Oh, wait,
as well.
what's a radio? What's a radio?
That's right.
So all right.
I'm old.
So yeah, thanks, Madspace. That's a great question, and
Okay.
we'll
We'll
see if we can play around with it later if someone pokes us to remind us. Right, let's see what else we got.
Oh, RiverPod.
Another question for Randall.
Should I use provider or RiverPod or Flutter _ block? Please suggest. I am new to Flutter. Please help me. Thanks, Masters, in advance.
Thanks, Masters. Who's he talking to?
I was going to say, I don't know who's
here.
I'd say so. One point that we always say, which is try each one and make up your own mind, right? Because at the end of the day I'm going to say, to be honest with you, I'm not that experienced with RiverPod, definitely not as much as Randall here. And I'm probably going to use RiverPod, provider. That's what I'm familiar with. And in Flutter block on its own doesn't necessarily take the place of provider. You can actually use them in tandem together. So there's not like one solution fits all. It's understand how they're being used, what the reasons for using them are, and see how it fits your use case in your product, right? But equally, the next which I write, I'm going to be using RiverPod to try it out and get to use that fully. So
Remy built both Provider and RiverPod. So first off, that's the same author. So Remy's a friend of ours, and we had him on the show. What, like 8 weeks ago?
I think it's like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. How time flies. And Provider was a smarter inherited widget, because inherited widget had some.
I'll be right back.
Just a lot of boilerplate you had to do, and so Provider fixed that. But as Remy was developing with Provider, he realized a fundamental flaw in how the widgets were subscribed to in inherited widget. And he even asked the Flutter team to change this about how this works. And they said, yeah, it's only needed for Provider. And that's why he said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and make something new that has my own dependency mechanism that works from scratch. And that's what RiverPod is. RiverPod is the dependency mechanism that was originally in place for inherited widgets, but implemented as an entirely separate tool chain. The advantage of that is it's not tied to Flutter anymore. It can be used in a pure Dart environment, which I've done before. And it's really nice to be able to use that tooling and that kind of dependency managements and things like that in a pure Dart environment. And but Remy says, look, this really Provider is in legacy status at this point. There's no new code being done with it, and it's just sitting there. So RiverPod's where it's at. Remy's throwing something new into RiverPod every couple of weeks. It's weird trying to keep up with it. I watch his repo and see what he's changed day by day, and it changes every day. But RiverPod also has a lot of capabilities that Provider could never approach. RiverPod is also simpler and has less boilerplate for a few applications. But that's why if you're going to start cold, I would say ignore Provider. You don't need to know it. You don't need to learn it unless it's to maintain somebody else's legacy code. But start with RiverPod. Now, here's the difference between RiverPod and Block for me. These are two separate ways of coming at the problem. Block is all about streams of events, and internally is implemented primarily with streams. And it's about having events come in one end of this pipeline and pop out at other ends of the pipeline. And it's very rigorous. You do things a particular way. It's great for teams that need to have a consistent one way of doing things. Riverpod, on the other hand, is like getting the 14,000 piece Lego set. You can build anything with it, but you have to understand how the blocks snap together. And that's the difference. So Riverpod's more like a manual shift. Oh, good. There go the kids again. Riverpod's like a manual shift, and block is more like an automatic shift. Okay. So we get the kids. You're not going to get that analogy either.
It's interesting that you made the point there about block, like the events coming in, states coming out. And I kind of think that was never necessarily the only way of doing block at the very beginning. Block didn't have a defined standard. And what happened was, and then Felix implemented the Flutter block package and was like, this is how I'm implementing block.
Right.
And that kind of became what people think of block, right? But truthfully speaking, the term block is just business logic. I think it was just business logic, wasn't it? I think it was just a logic class. I think it was it or something like that. And I think the idea is just to move your business logic out of your widgets, because what we were seeing in Flutter at the time was, because you could just put functions in line, everyone's putting all their functions in their builds, and it just gets messy. You can't really structure things right well. You can't test it necessarily as well as you might if you move it separately. We can test widgets, but it's still you want to be able to test your logic separate from your UI, and you can't do that if you combine it all together. So so the idea of the block stuff was just to make a class outside your widget, and then you can send it like call functions on it and receive state and events back that then your widgets represent. So that you can still do without Flutter block. Like this is, there's no need to have to, go to any one sort of state management thing. Go, okay, this is what I'm going to do everywhere, right? The key is to being consistent, right? Don't just every little widget, every little bit of code do something different. The idea is to have consistency in the way you approach something, so that when someone comes on board, or you want to come back to it later, there's something you can work towards and understand, rather than being every time each different class you look at is done a different way. Then you're like, well, what am I? Yeah, how do I do that, right?
What you're looking for in every state management system are three key things: how to identify and locate a particular thing somewhere out there that might be changing, how to know when that thing is changed, and also how to substitute it when you're testing. And Riverpod does all three of these things very well. It's designed to be the rendezvous system, the notification system, and the replacement for testing systems, all wrapped into one. And so you don't need locators like Get-It and other things when you start using Riverpod. So it's really a nice format for that. Block can also do that all very well as well, but it has a little less flexibility in terms of inputs and outputs. And so Riverpod, anything can go in and anything can come out. It's pretty cool.
Go on, Daniel. Sorry.
I was going to say, the one thing I would kind of add is my little hot take on some of this stuff is I am not a fan of putting business logic in an inherited widget, because it seems to me to violate object-oriented principles, because it's available to everybody, and you don't have the separation necessarily there. I mean, you can still enforce it yourself, but to me, so having that outside where you can, have a much more purposeful decision of whether you're including, your Riverpod instance or whatever you need for that. I find that to be a lot more in line with, especially for newer people, with how you should be coding from an object-oriented standpoint.
To be clear, just to be clear for those people that don't know, what Daniel was talking about is really the difference between provider and Riverpod. So provider heavily relies on inherited widget, where Riverpod does not. It has its own mechanism for that for various reasons. It also means you can just use in plain Dart code or in your server code, and you can share logic. There's other reasons why that is good. Now, even Riverpod has ways of getting stuff from the context, so that it still deals with this kind of stuff, right? However, the principles and techniques are different. So just to be clear that yeah, you still have like, I think is it called was it called provider scope or something like that? What's the top level?
Provider scope, yeah.
Yeah.
Provider
And
scope,
that's
provides access to a provider container, and you can have containers further down in the tree if you want localized values. Yeah.
and that's essentially, that is the bit that's the same as in terms of provider. It has to, you go up the tree still from your context and find that.
Yeah.
And then you can, from that, you liaise, if you will, with Riverpod's mechanisms for connecting everything. So there's always going to be this overlap in terms of how to get from your UI component to outside of the UI world into where it's just business logic.
Right.
But equally, like some applications I've built, is you just make one top level class or something, and then you essentially have a mechanism, whatever you want, like, I don't know, a mixing on state, choose whatever you want, to just go use inheritor widget to get that, and then that's essentially your escape outside of the hierarchy system, and then you go do whatever you need to do with streams, and you can connect to all your components however you want, and this again gives you the separation of business logic and UI.
And we could do a whole show on state management. I want to bring up one more point about state management, though, about why you need to use it. Is that if you just are throwing a global variable out there and somebody uses the value, they never get notified if the value changes. And so you need this kind of mechanism that will allow you to subscribe to these global values. The other thing is that a singleton, when people keep bringing these up, singletons, it's like, stop doing those, because a singleton is difficult when you're doing testing. Because now you have this one spot that initializes itself in a way that it only defines and doesn't able to get overridden. I don't use singletons anymore. I just simply create a Riverpod provider that is a lazily initialized, well-known place to get data that I can override in testing trivially. And so it's a much nicer mechanism for that kind of stuff.
We'll get off this in a second, this topic, but I do want to say
let's just do the whole show about this. Come on.
And River also, just to be clear, there's an interesting dynamic that I think people need to understand. So the paradigm of object-oriented programming is that you're calling methods, and there's a strict sort of flow of progression of statement, and you can follow that flow even with await. Even with async, you can actually follow those things so that it waits, once it finishes, it comes back, it continues, right? Streams, on the other hand, is kind of interesting because streams brought a new paradigm to the mindset of how you program, because you set up your pipeline, you're setting up your stream of when one, like let's say you got a map where filter map, like you set up a whole pipeline of things. You put something, then you put data into your pipe, and it gets processed through all those event handlers, if you will, that you've set up on your pipe, and then the result comes out at the end. And setting up, and then again, that concept of there's a setup process, which is one thing, and then there's the running and the execution of the data through that pipe is two separate processes. And I think that is essentially the same as when you talk about Riverpod. Riverpod, it uses globals to declare those things, but that's not where that code is run. So you can actually have multiple copies of something and override them at different places in the tree. You can do some really sort of complex behaviors, but they're not globals. So we're using the global system almost as a key to finding the Riverpod instance, the provider to find the state instance. But,
the global namespace is being used as a rendezvous key. It's saying I want to get the data that is about my particular API's fetching of particular records. So I need to know where that is. I have to have a name in my consumer code to know where to go, where it's getting produced, and that's the global name that it uses. But the data inside of it is all controlled by the protocols that are on a provider, which are very restricted and well known and very well thought out.
And the power of this as well is the fact that it can be really well statically analyzed and very well, and it's very type safe and everything else that you get from that. Whereas methods like listen to, subscribe, so a very common practice from some time ago now, actually 7 years ago, was event bus model. The event bus model of you have an event bus, you throw events onto it, and then you get your states back out, very similar to Block. But then you can have other parts of your app. So you might have like your back end and your front end be using the same event bus, right? So a button sends an event say onto an event bus, and it says, I don't push this button, and then you can have something on your back end, listen to that event, subscribe to those events, and once it's done something else, it can put something back onto that event chain, and you can actually have like two-way event stuff. And it got really crazy. And in fact, it's a very bad pattern. As soon as you're using events in two directions, you're probably using events wrong. Like events are kind of a notification; they're you're unidirectional. Anyway, I've digressed here completely. But I on that point, I was trying to get to the point that is interesting. That another thing that I've seen recently is a lot of people still doing mutatable models. There's no problem in having models with fields that mutate, but if they mutate, you need a way of notifying people that they've changed, right?
Yeah.
So you should really only sort of try and stick with two. Like you can do whatever you want, right? But my recommendation is to stick with either immutable models, right? That's the ones we copy with, and you can do this yourself when you build a model. But the idea is that if a field changes, you create a completely new instance of that object with new fields. That also means you get a new identity hash code. It's a new instance of the object that has other benefits further down the chain when you're trying to do comparisons and such like. But equally, the other model of having state is to have something like providers or so example, this in Flutter is a change notifier or value notifier, which is this notion of it's an object. You can change it has a mutating state, but then when any of that state mutates, it notifies anything that wants to listen to that state that the change has occurred. So what you can actually do is actually set up a class with several value notifiers. And what they do is essentially hold a value and notify anything that wants to listen to them when something changes. And that gives you that kind of control. And so it's very similar to what Riverpod does in that respect. Like you're saying that when the state changes, you can notify things that's changed. You build up a chain of these events, and that is your state flow.
Also, Riverpod, the subscriptions that you're talking about are tied into widget state. So it is all properly handled when the widget goes away, that the subscriptions are automatically terminated. And that's a lot of work done for you that you would normally do by hand with listen and have to create a dispose method and a bunch of other things that I just don't have to think about. I just go ref watch that thing and I got my value and I update automatically when it changes. It's all really nice. Okay,
right.
I think we beat this one to death. Let's move on, please.
All right.
Yeah.
Clad says running integration tests on iOS with flavors result on the test stuck Xcode build finish. These are words that don't make sense to me. Hang on. And the app launch on the and the app launch on the simulator and tests still loading / building. It's interesting. So basically, you're saying you're trying to run integration tests on iOS and with flavors, and things are getting stuck when it's trying to build and it's not launching correctly. It stays loading or something. I would say take it to first principles, do a Flutter clean, right? Ensure that you've got a clean start and then try doing a fresh build. I would also suggest that you, after that, if it still doesn't work, I would suggest that you delete your iOS. So obviously, I hope you got everything checked into a Git repo. So that's your first thing. Make sure everything's checked in. Delete the iOS folder. Run flutter create dot in the directory of your project. It will recreate a new iOS folder for you with all the latest Xcode configuration.
Right.
Try and run your app and try and do that as well. So you have you have your integration test in your driver, and then you have your project. Try and do that. Now it can be in both locations. If I remember, there's is there 2 iOS folders? No, the driver is.
There's
loaded. It loads the normal project. I forget. Anyway, the point here is rebuild those iOS folders because it might have changed something in your Xcode configuration that is now incompatible or something weird has happened, right? So running it fresh. If it then works, you can then go look at Git and go, okay, what's changed? And you can probably see what's changed there. And then if you're, you can discard your changes from the Flutter icon back to your app icon, and just continue with the new sort of Xcode project space or something, right? Not ideal. It's a massive pain reconfiguring Xcode for sure. The other thing is check your Xcode schemes, because you need one for each flavor. If you don't have one for each flavor, that could potentially cause problems. There is a page on flutter.dev documentation for setting up Xcode and flavors, and make sure it's all configured right. Hopefully that helps, and investigate and try and work out what the problem is. If you're still having a problem, take to Stack Overflow, take to the Flutter issues, see if anyone else is having this problem recently, because maybe the upgrade of Flutter caused some sort of problem or some sort of bug with your configuration. Who knows?
Ask on the Discord and the Slacks. There's lots of places to get support,
where you can put code snippets, or maybe you can jump onto a chat with someone where you can share your screen and kind of work with someone else to try and resolve the problem, right?
That's what we like to do.
Sometimes it's just easy talking to someone, and once you talk to them and work through your problem, it's like, I forgot to do this. There's that problem there that that solves it. So there's a solution that solves it. So hopefully that helps. Anything else from anyone else? Sorry, I kind of barreled into that. All right, let's next question. Mr. Q, but what do you guys think of Mason and bricks? Would you recommend?
Yes, I believe Mason with bricks is the right way to use them together.
You have to be a mason to set bricks or something. Is it masonry or something? Is that what's called when you as a builder or something?
There was an observable Flutter a few months ago where they showed using Mason, and I had wanted to get into Mason. And so I watched that show and I went, okay, finally, I got to get off my tail. And I built my first real brick and published it. And I was like, wow, this was simpler than I thought it was. For the record, I wrote something called CodePad, which is like DartPad, but invokes VS Code as your editor rather than having to have a web-based editor. And but it was great. I did the whole thing probably in like 24 real hours, maybe like an hour of actual time of understanding. And I have both a pre-flight and a post-flight Dart apps that are running to massage the tree to essentially build the project the way I want to build it. And so it's really great when you have a lot of things that look the same, like especially if you're using a framework like Block, where you're going to have some sort of project-based standards for how each new block should look and the files that have to relate to that block. I've worked on a couple of projects that have used Mason as their sort of templating system internally. So they build project-specific bricks to generate the stuff for their particular style of things. And that is pretty darn easy to use. It uses Mustache in the templates, so it's something most people are familiar with. I had to learn it because I had never done anything with Ruby before, so it was like, how do these work? And but it wasn't that hard to learn. So yeah.
For those that don't know, Mason is also written by Felix. It's again template you can generate for helping you sort of build things together. It's also Brick Hub, which you'll find, which allows you to explore bricks and to find them.
Type CodePad in there. Type CodePad in the search.
CodePad, one word.
Yeah. Yep. There we go. That's me. That's me. Yep.
So again, this is
I am somebody. Yes.
Randall. There you go. So again, this allows you to find these components to help you bring your apps together. But there's lots. 25 pages worth. I'm sure you can find some interesting things to get you going if you're interested in that. Right. Let's. What else do we have? Let's carry on. I think. So just to ask, I've never used Mason. I knew about it being made, and I think Felix and some other people were discussing over time. I've just never found a chance to actually use it yet. So
it's at the core of some of the other very good products, like the very good scaffolding or whatever it's called, where it'll build an app for you with a particular set of styles to it. So yeah, check those out. It's sort of all in that genre.
It reminds me just of a point that I was told the other day, that someone said like, "Oh, Flutter's not used in any big projects, like any like big corporations." I'm like, it is, because I've made some of those myself, so I do know that it is. But also equally, it's it's not. You don't go look at an ad drop and go, "Oh, that's made with Flutter," right? Not usually, right? Like it feels the same. Or an iOS product, for example, it feels whatever the iOS product, however it's been made, same, similarly. So I do kind of find that interesting, that people think that. I think the other side of this is, for those that are working on these big projects, they take a long time, and it takes a lot longer for a large company to move than it does for a small startup. A small startup, just start using Flutter, boom, and it's released and it's out there. Whereas when you go to a large corporation, you've got scheduled weeks. They've got to line it up. There are other departments and marketing and all sorts of other fun things. So it's not as simple as just go, right? So I think we'll start seeing more bigger companies start using Flutter anyway, but it just takes longer, right?
Yeah, the showcase on the Flutter dev site is a good place to go to show your friends, hey, look, it's being used by this stuff. And we're often discussing behind the scenes when we talk about sites like that, can we get more elements in that gallery from developing nations as well as the obvious ones from the core nations there? Because people want to say, hey, look, these guys just down the street are using Flutter. If Flutter is being used for something like 400,000 apps, that's what they were announcing. It must be being used by most of what you pull down. And I hope everybody knows the secret trick of telling whether something's a Flutter app, right?
So there is actually an interesting way of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There's a few minor ones, but the one that's the easiest is you go to something that scrolls. And when you scroll it with one finger, you see that it matches your finger precisely. That's great. Now put two fingers down and scroll. It scrolls twice as fast because it adds the vectors for both fingers together when it decides the scroll velocity and distance.
I think that was fixed along with a bunch of other stuff, I think.
No, it's never been fixed. I've looked at the issue. They're leaving it alone because iOS and Android solve it two different ways. So they can't mimic both of them with Flutter.
Oh, I see.
So they're just leaving it the way it is for now because there's no real obvious way. Because here's the problem. What if one goes up and one goes down? Now, either iOS or Android, one of them, it stays the same, and the other, it only does the up motion or something. So they're asymmetric. They're not the same. So
solve that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you can decide and commit, but it's going to be different from either iOS or Android then.
No, what I mean is what platform your app is running on. So they could solve that. I don't see, but it means that you have to.
I kind of like it as the universal shibboleth that helps me decide that I am running an app.
So from those that don't know, want to know, there's a website called App Brain, which does, in fact, we could probably bring it up, but it does analysis of apps that are out there that are released on the Play Store, and it'll tell you if it's built with Flutter. It actually has a thing for that, so that's great. The way it does that is it just looks to see if libflutter.so is shipped inside the app, and you can actually do that yourself. So if you pull an APK of your device, you can then look and just extract it as a zip file and see if it has libflutter.so in the app contents, and if it does, great, then it's made with Flutter. There is actually another interesting one. I think there was an app. I can't remember which. So I'm going to have to find it now. There's an app you can install off the Play Store, and it tells you what apps in your device are made with Flutter and shows you their icons and the information. I can't remember the one. Is it Flutter Shark? Flutter Shark? I think it's
Shark. Something with Shark in the title. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It was. Hang on, let's see if I can. Yeah, Flutter Shark. So this is kind of interesting. So, sorry, it's fun to try on my. So, Philips Hue, we know that Philips Hue, their app has that. My telephone company, EE, they're using it. That's a big global, EE is a national provider of self-service here in the UK. Also, apparently, my credit card company is now using it. The latest version of their app is now using it, which is new to me. So that's interesting. Cool. Yeah, I mean, so that's Flutter Shark. I'll see if I can find that actually briefly, just so that people can go try it out. It's made by someone in the community. I forget his name. I do apologize. But I will link.
And there's nothing possible like that for iOS because it's too locked down. We're all sandboxed over on the iOS side.
It is somewhat sandboxed. You do actually get that kind of ability on. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure you do get that ability on. Brain, come on iOS, but you have to have like a certain permission or something. If I remember rightly.
Permission to meddle in other people's affairs.
No, you can see what apps are installed.
I'm pretty sure there's no permission for that.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. From a device management software.
As managed devices, there's lots of things you can do, but most people do not enable managed device.
Yeah.
Especially willingly.
This is the one, Flutter Shark. So Philips Hue. This guy's got
Flutter Shark.
It tells you what packages.
Flutter Shark.
It tells you what packages they're actually using. It's pretty cool as well. But yeah, I've put the link in the chat. I think for those that want to grab it, there it is.
Someday I'm going to sing Baby Shark at karaoke. It's in the list. But I'm afraid I'd get booed and kicked out of there.
I thought you were about to say you're going to sing it on here. I'll be like, nope, remove.
We don't want to get this blocked.
Right.
I was doing a little bit of it, but I'm doing Flutter Shark. So
all right, let's see what next question.
Parodies are protected. Parodies are protected.
Stephanie, Steph, Patterson.
Hi, Steph. You should be on the show. Why aren't you on the show?
She said that.
She actually said she might be able to next week.
Oh, okay, next week. All right.
Is it possible to achieve flavors on Mac OS app built with Flutter? That's interesting. I don't see any reason why not. I mean, they're built the same. Oh god, they're built with either the iOS. I mean, you're still built with Xcode, but I'll be honest with you, I've never tried to compile a Mac OS X app with flavors, so I don't know. I would see if you can follow the standard flavor documentation on the Flutter dev website. Let's see if I can grab that up here. I'll post a link in the chat. There you go. So you go to into the docs, deployment, and creating flavors in Flutter. This is the same thing for the other questioner earlier who wants to know about this. And this tells you, get Xcode installed, create flavors in iOS, the different steps you go through. This kind of stuff is always manually configured because each platform does it differently, right? And his is an Android. It doesn't particularly say anything in here about Mac, but probably I would say follow the iOS stuff and see if that kind of works. Also, there are packages. Actually,
I was gonna say there's a Flutter flavor package I just looked up that definitely talks about Mac OS.
Oh, it does. It's probably
Flutter Flavor does. Yeah, that's Flavorizer. Flutter Flavor for sure did though. But if you look at the top and you see it.
Oh, does it? I must have missed it.
Scroll up more.
It says it supports all these platforms.
Yeah.
But no one declares these platforms. This is what it kind of detects. So if someone ships a Windows folder in their app, it says it supports Windows.
Nice.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I always look at this with a pinch of salt and see if they actually say anything about a particular platform. I mean, I don't see anything in here. It's not very obvious in here. Like it doesn't say, "Oh, I support this, this, and this." I kind of like this idea of defining them in, but again, Android, iOS. The thing is, you can compile your iOS apps for Mac, so
yeah, for sure.
there's that option as well. Hopefully, let us know, Steph, if you find that one out. I'm just not a Mac person, so sorry. I guess we're on to the next question.
Sure. Let's do it. Oh.
Do you want to read this one?
You talking to me or
yeah.
or Danielle? Danielle, you could read it if you're starting.
Right.
If you're in training for being a host, you could do
right,
this.
Exactly. Because says, he's asking, I want to get location of in a separate isolate, but when I minimize the application, the isolate gets paused. So how can I get the location when the application gets minimized?
Why do so many people want to keep track of where my phone is?
Right.
This is a very constant question all the time. When they ask about background, that's all they're ever asking about is getting the location all the time.
So
it's weird.
The answer to this is use a so first of all, it's nothing to do with Dart. Well, there's ways, depends on what you're doing. So first of all, I'd say, why do you need to have it in the background? Because first of all, that's a red flag, and second of all, why do it's using up someone's battery all the time that you're using their GPS and everything else, and why? So the other side of this though is that when an app is backgrounded, and assuming you mean, let's say, again, different on each platform and so on. I'll talk about Android briefly. And that is, at some point it becomes less important. So I'll give you an example. You background your current app. There's nothing to do with getting location, but you just background an app that you're currently working on. You go to the gallery app, Google Photos, whatever. You start going through all your photos. Now, to load all those thumbnails of photos, it has to use your memory on your device. And it goes, I don't need this app that I was just running, and it shuts it down to get more memory to use for the current app the user's using. Then if they flip in their recent apps back to your app, it reloads. Now, the idea is that you use the state restoration that's inside Flutter, so it comes back to exactly where it was with all the fields or whatever else filled out exactly as they had them. You should be testing that. Everyone should be testing that. I've warned you. Right. There's actually a really cool thing you can do on Android in developer settings. At the very bottom, you'll find don't keep activities as a setting. If you enable it, as soon as you switch away from an activity, it will kill it. And when you switch back, it will come back. And it's a nice way of testing. If you need to test that functionality of something going away, that's how you test it. Anyway.
To do that on iOS, when you background something, you have to dismiss it too. So you have to go to the switcher and dismiss it.
There's slightly different behavior on you can do that on Android, but it has a slightly different connotation to the way the operating system believes the user is forcefully killing the application. They don't want to continue. Anyway, the point I was trying to make here was that if you put anything in the background, the operating system will just reclaim it, and that's when it's shut down. And that's what is happening to you. It's getting paused, and then it'll get shut down, and it'll get thrown away. Now, you need to agree with the operating system that you want to continue running in the background, and that's what's called a service on Android. And specifically, if you want to continue using stuff in the background with the service, it's called a foreground service, and that's where you display a notification to the user to say, I'm continuing to work in the background. You can cancel. You give them an action which says stop, and allows the user to have control over what's running on their phone in the background. If you do not do this, you will just get shut down now, the latest versions of Android, right? They just don't allow background stuff without foreground notification. This, again, gives people the visibility of what's running in the background on my device. So there is a package, I think it's geolocation, which
geofencer?
Geolocation package. So there's the location package. I'm just going to check this because it's been a while. The location package. Come on, Simon. I'm trying to remember what the package is called now. Geolocator. Sorry, that's the one. So there's two packages here. Let me bring this up. So this is quite a. Let me get right. There we go. So Geolocator actually offers background continuous updates, and it's got settings for that somewhere, if I remember rightly. Background. There you go. And it tells you here from Android 10, you need to access background location, how you add it, and then there's a set of things you go through. Where is it further down? Here we go. To display a foreground notification whilst it's continuing to fetch location in the background. And if it should or should not show this notification to the user for if you're doing it in the background or not, and so on and so forth. So there are ways around this, and they also need to give permission called always to allow it to run in the background. So you can tell your user about that. That's again how you handle permissions. And the sort of request permission model on both iOS and Android is one that when you need the permission, you then request for it, and they get displayed a reason. And you define that text, so it's in the plist file on iOS, and then on Android, it's actually in the request that you send, and they get displayed. Oh, you want it for this reason, and then so you can say, oh, I'm looking for the location, so I can make sure that your car is going to arrive on time. And so there's a taxi thing, and they want to see your location on the map, and the driver needs to know where you are to pick you up, right? So you continuously get the person's location in the background in case they background the app whilst they wait to be picked up from a taxi or something. That's kind of a common kind of use case for this kind of thing.
I have occasionally seen people go on to Stack Overflow and say, Apple rejected my app. And then the conversation goes down to basically, what did you ask for your location permission? And they said, well, I just want to know the location. And that's all I wrote. And I went, no, you don't get to just want to know the location. That is not a reason. That's not a reason a user would do. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got one active in the background. It's just showing with something like that.
It actually says at the top left. Yeah. If you tap on that, I think it takes you to
it does. It does. It lets me, it shows me this. And lets me know which one it is, and it lets me stop it.
Cool.
Yeah. I've had my phone set on Turkish mode, so I had to go change it back to English to show it here.
Well.
All right, let's so hopefully that helps with the questioner with getting location in the background. It's not.
Let me interrupt. Let me interrupt for a second. We're getting close to where we want to start doing some live coding. Oh, yeah. So we've got 10 questions after this in the queue. So I'm going to cut off in about 5 more minutes, taking any questions. So get your last minute questions in now.
I was going to say, that's what it looks like in Turkish.
Yeah, I have no idea what this is. I also mentioned that we will take some questions about what we're coding. So you can ask questions about what we're coding when we're coding, but other than that, we're not answering random questions. Yes. All right. What is a good way to handle platform level exceptions that crash the app? I recently faced it was caused by an external plugin. I'm able to catch it at the Android level, but can't redirect to Flutter. I can't see any way that would be a problem. So I'm kind of curious. So if a native crash happens and you're able to catch it in Android, you're able to catch it in Flutter because you can just bracket that and then capture it in Android and then send a notification to Flutter to say, I found this error. This is the error, right? There's nothing that stop you from doing that. So I think you need to go look at the integration docs with the platform. Go on.
But I think what Detained was saying here is that the plugin didn't do that. And so the one he was using crashed. The plugin caused an error, right? And it didn't come back and tell him in Flutter. Right.
But he's saying he's able to catch it in Android level. So you would modify the plugin to catch it and then send back the exception on the method call, right? Or how we would do it. Or if it's happening elsewhere, like some background thing, you can catch it, get the instance of Flutter that you're running, and send something over a method channel to your app. So you can definitely do that. There's nothing that says you can't do that, right? Just to be clear. What's a good way to handle platform level exceptions that crash the app? I would honestly, like in that situation, I'd be like, why am I using this plugin? Is there a need to continue using this plugin? Is it something that I can integrate directly into my app without that plugin? Am I just using a small feature of this very larger plugin? And what can I do to make that myself? That would be the first thing, because once it becomes part of your responsibility, you want it inside your app, not external, right? Now, you can also, and the first thing I would honestly go to is if it's a problem like that, fork the plugin. First of all, you can raise an issue with the plugin, and he might just fix it and do a new build. If he's not responsive or he's not getting around to it, then fork the package, make the change, continue using that forked version with your fix, you ship your app with that, and then you submit a PR back, and hopefully they merge it before your next major release, and you can get the latest code in with that fix in it in later on in your release. You can always use any forked version. Great. So you can always use again. So you can fork their repo. You can make the right. That's the interesting point. So we'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, you can always fork the repo and make the changes, and then use that Git reference as a Git dependency. So rather than getting your dependency from pub.dev, if you go look up the PubSpec documentations on the Dart website, you'll see that you can actually use Git references for your packages. And in that sense, you can use any forked package with changes in your app. So you're not limited to just using pub.dev packages, first of all. You can also use local packages. So if you can actually copy the entire source code into a subdirectory in your repo if you wanted to with your modifications, and then you could just do package path ... packages, whatever the package name is, and include it. You can do that kind of thing yourself as well, and that's quite common. But obviously now you're maintaining someone else's code alongside yours. Not ideal. It depends on your situation, but obviously not ideal. And if it's dead code if it's dead in terms of they're not looking at your issues or responding to PRs, then you need to do that yourself. You need to think about this, and then what you just said was core functionality of your application. Bring it into your app. It's core. You said it yourself. So my thing right now, if they're not responding to issues and it's a core functionality, bring it into your app. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Make a little sub package if you want to. Do a method channel, call out to the native code, do whatever you need to do, bring it in. And to do that is the next thing, right? To do that, the first thing I say is go look at the Java doc. This is always accessible. I'll pop the link in the chat. We do post this every now and again. So this is the API.flutter.dev/Java doc. Is where you get the Java documentation around the embedded platform. And so if I go like activities, is activity aware, is what you add to your plugin. Here's all the functions, how you use it, all that kind of fun stuff. So this is the documentation that's generated around that. There's also another one, Objective-C doc. And this is the documentation for when you're doing iOS plugins. And again, these are all the classes that you see and what the functions are and what their parameters mean and all that kind of fun stuff. And you've got both of those. The place in the Flutter docs where you want to actually go looking for this information is over here, platform integration packages and plugins. So you should find some interesting things in here. Where is it? If I can find it. Developing packages and plugins. Is this the one? Let me just quickly see. You don't need to do federation for your own little package, by the way. Just to be clear, this is about all the background processes. There you go. So that's probably helping some people, right? We were just talking earlier. For some reason, I can't find the bit I'm looking for, which is background processes. Give some recommended packages and stuff. I think it was platform integration. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. Right, platform specific code. That's the one. There we go. So this shows you how it works. I'll pop this. I'll pop this link in the chat so you can go take a look. Okay. So yeah, this diagrams how it works and also explains the differences in types between the Dart type versus the Java, Kotlin, Objective-C, Swift, whatever it is. And then how do you call out to platform specific code? It gives you an example of how you do that, and you can just try this out. And I think every Flutter developer should try this, right? To understand the process involved and how you communicate with native platform code, right? So I'd say take it from there, but yeah, it's definitely worth it. So that was and as you said, bring it in. So I think that answers that question. Anything you guys want to add? Sorry, I'm just straight in.
No, I'll second that. Knowledge is power on something like this. The only thing I would really kind of point out is the fact that, especially on something like this where it's core functionality, if you don't have good ability to handle crashes or things like that, then if you got some sort of border case that happens out in the wild, you're gonna have no way of knowing what's going on, and so that's very important to make sure that you try to come up with a a solution that will let you know
Right.
that, when you've got thousands of people doing it, it's crashing for two of them. How do you know where it's crashing? And so, that's something I'm struggling with my own apps right now, is a good coherent way that fits in with, the rest of the ecosystem that my company works with and stuff like that. So it's that's something that's in my mind a lot.
They're talking on that point. You can use Firebase Crashalytics, which will also catch all native crashes on Android and iOS. So if if that plugin just crashes, like you said, randomly in the wild, it would catch that and report it. So at least you know, and you can go looking for a fix.
Yep.
So that's Crashalytics. There's also another one that does the same thing called Sentry. Sentry allows you to, again, capture those things and report them, and they can run that on your own platform. You're not requiring to use Google's infrastructure, so on and so forth. Right. But check them out. Right, moving on.
Yes.
Is there a way to use process.runsync to call PowerShell as admin? I tried to process this verb run as, but I get a security error. You can, because the program you actually run is called run as. I think you remember rightly. I'm going to have to check this. Yes, the top level run as is the command that you need. I don't know if it's it's runAs.exe. There you go. So what you're doing is you start run as, and the parameters for run as is PowerShell. So this allows you to run a program as administrator. There's like parameters, you can go look it up, and then that will start PowerShell, and then you give the parameters for PowerShell. So it's kind of like passing it along. But yeah, it's the same as in Linux when you use super user. So you do sudo and then the command, and you're basically saying run this command as the super user. Super user do. That's what that's for.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's we need to go look at.
Cool.
I'm not sure. Like it says, call PowerShell as admin. Like, yeah, interesting. But yeah, hopefully that works. Tell us. Should be fine.
All Windows, all mystical to me.
But it does kind of feel like it would be a security error.
As well. No, because it tells the user. It says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Right? It gives them the prompt, and that's like once they continue, then it runs the secondary command as the administrator. And it's the same for like on Linux when you use sudo. It asks you your password to confirm that you want to perform the action. And there's also actually run as on Android as well, so you can actually run. It's interesting. You can actually run commands as other apps installed on the device. I won't go into it. Each app has actually got its own user ID in the Linux / Unix environment on your device. So some other interesting fun things you can do there. Anyway, right. Next question, I guess. Let's plow through these. What is the benefit of building community? I applied to become a GDSC leader for my uni. If I pass, what should I do to make my community grow? Interesting. What is the benefit of building community? I think that the thing that I see about this is everyone helping each other. It's no good being an island on your own, right? There's only so much you can learn on your own. Like right now, we're imparting this knowledge, right? And imparting this knowledge, everyone benefits that's watching, right? So it's the same thing that me and Randall go through when we answer questions on forums. The same for Remy as well when he's answering questions on Stack Overflow, and that is you answer them in the public forums because then everyone that comes across that finds it gets the answer, and everyone is brought up together, right? If I'm just answering your question directly to you, as we first started doing the show, it was actually private. It was on like a Zoom thing long, many years ago. And it was great between us. We could ask each other questions and have a conversation, just like a meetup, right? But then only that group of people get the benefit of the answer, not the wider community. So one of the reasons why we're doing this is to kind of still have the answers that everyone wants, but onto a wider community.
And the Zoom calls weren't recorded. So the advantage of this show is it's now part of the permanent record. Ooh. We're now part of the permanent record of questions and answers. And we do, for many of the shows, thanks to all you out there, we have like even time-stamped questions and answers so that it can be Googleable. And
Christian, it's Christian, one of our long-time viewers, Christian, he does this lovely thing where he's been posting comments. I need to go back and I need to give him access, so hopefully he can jump in and kind of do that. Like as part of this, I don't even know. I need to look into it.
If you're watching, please keep doing that. That's great.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yes, right.
I think we skipped ahead a few questions to Danny Ackerman. He asked a question also that I think goes along with one of the reasons why.
We haven't got there yet.
Well, no, I know
Yeah.
that. What I'm saying is I think it's kind of related here. We're talking about what's the benefit of building community. I think that also getting more of a community out there and getting more people knowing about it and stuff will help with adoption, which is kind of where just spoiler alert, everybody, that question's coming up, but that's something I think that this is a good reason for that is helping people get over that hump of this is new and scary and different, and it's really not. And if we show you real world cases and answer questions and stuff like that, I think it helps a lot, and that's true I think for community in general.
So the question I also asked like what they should do to make the community grow, and I think the answer to that is try looking at building your community. So starting community events like doing like a hackathon, doing like workshops, inviting people and speakers and other people out there to come to your location. Like maybe they're local in I don't know where you're from. I'm guessing I feel like it's Vietnam. I may be wrong, but that kind of area of the world, you'll find other speakers that are in your area that speak the same dialects or the same languages, and that can come and speak to the local people to build that community, right? And also, it's about getting out there and getting known, right? So you have to really invite people to come along, because people don't just turn up. I mean, people start meetups. Like, I made a meetup, people are going to turn up, and no one turns up. No, you have to engage, because people don't know you exist. It's the same problem here. It's kind of interesting with hiring, right? You don't just sit there and wait for someone to offer you a job, right? You have to put yourself out there. And then the more you're known out there, the more chance you're going to be offered the job that you want, right? So you have to, I think building a community is don't get me wrong, it's not simple, and it will be slow at first. So stick with it though, right? Because the more you're known, again, like it's like by word of mouth, someone will go, oh, that chap, he did that meetup the other day. I think that'd be perfect. He's talking about mobile apps or something. Go down there, check out his stuff. Go look it up on this thing. You'll find out what's going on. And they go, they're having a little thing, get together next week. Perfect, we'll do that, right? Or they're having a speaker come down and talk about this stuff. Oh, awesome, right? So I think, it's that kind of just
if you're in English and willing to do remote, I know someone that would be happy to. Someone would be happy to come. For sure, I know.
All right.
I'll go anywhere as long as it's not the middle of my night.
I was gonna say, if it gives you what free pizza and
there's no protocol for pizza. There's no pizza colon yet. As soon as there is, I'm looking for pizza colon.
All right. Let's see. Next question. Amir, is using shared preferences to save data locally a bad practice? Suppose I have two types of user, and after first signing up, I want to save the user type on the device. Is it okay to use separate? Interesting point. I have a long thing I could talk about this for. In short, it's perfectly safe, right? Like the app data is stored with the app. However, it is kind of interesting because shared preferences is like a nice way of doing it cross-platform. However, the problem you're going to get is it's meant for key value pairs. It's meant for like settings and like basic information. If you want to store more structured information like objects, like I don't know, lots of documents and other data, you don't put them in shared preferences. And at that point, what you want is like you might want, for myself in my apps, I simply use a file. So you can use the path provider package, which gives you the path of the application data directory. And then you can say, give me a file in that directory called, I don't know, settings.json. And then you can just take your model object that's in Dart and say, JSON.encode and save it to a file. And then when the app starts up, you read it from the file, right? Now you've got persisted data for all your settings for structured information. Now you can do the same thing with a logged in user, their profile, right? So you could have like a profile field in that JSON file for your persisted data, or you could have a profile.json file. And then when they log in, you get their profile down from the server, you store it, and then when each time the app starts up, it reads that, gets their auth key, checks to see if they're still authenticated. If they're not, they log them out, otherwise it deletes the file, right? But equally enough, like other apps will do multi-user login, so they can switch user accounts, and that's the same as having a folder called accounts or local accounts, and then each one you have like a folder for each a file for each user, and then there's like an active true on the one that's currently being used, and then when the app starts up, it reads all the profiles, use the one that's currently active, that kind of thing.
I believe one thing you need to consider is when you're doing stuff like what Simon was just talking about is how much of the data gets copied to your new phone that you just bought. How much of it is getting backed up into your backup so that it's going to be copied into your new phone? And if you start doing arbitrary stuff in temporary space or cache space, those all get thrown away.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful that it is in the app specific directory. I forget what that's called in the Pathfinder.
App support directory, app data directory, something like that. I can't remember.
Something like that, right? Or in shared preferences, which of course also is copied over.
So they are. There's a flag in your Android manifest to say if backups are enabled, and shared preferences are backed up, and also anything in the support directory, I think it is, or the app directory, and that's, you can turn that off as well if you don't want that. You can also, there's actually settings in your Android project, same for like iOS, where you can actually say don't save these files. So you can actually say this directory is off limits, don't store anything, this is temporary. But there's actually in the path provider packages, get temp directory or get cache directory, and it gives you the place where you put stuff that you download. So for example, thumbnails. When you go on, when you go to you use your API and you download thumbnails to display to a user, these go in the cache directory. You get that path provider, you get the cache directory, you store them in there, you load them from there. You go, before you download it, you go, does it already exist in my cache directory? Yes, and use that. Now you don't have to download it every time, right? And these packages already exist, Cache Manager and Cache Network Image, but
right.
The point here is that that's what that's used for. It also means when the user is running out of space, they go into the app, they go clean device or clear storage, and it deletes all those cache folders from every app. And that's how, or if it's like a global thing, or they go to one app and say clear cache, and it clears the temporary data for just that one app. And that's like how you can sort of work with the user. Don't just put everything. I've seen apps that put, in fact, proper professional apps of big companies still do the thing where they put that temporary data in their data directory, and it gets backed up with their profile, which is stupid because it's temporary, or alternatively, you can't clear it temporarily because it's in their data directory, and that's where their permanent data is stored, right? So
I hear a lot of questions on the various places I patrol, the socials that I patrol, that people are going, how do I get my two apps so that they have this, they can share their data back and forth? And where does the image go that I downloaded, whatever that means? Because it's like, well, there's like 4 or 5 different kinds of directories that each app owns, and they're all independent of each other apps. And you can't just go look at photos. Photos are in a different category. So people that are used to desktop applications don't always understand how these mobile things are so locked down and so compartmentalized. Yeah. So we should do like a 30-minute segment on this one day, Simon.
Definitely.
Just to go through the pathways and stuff. Yeah.
It's not just that.
Yeah, that would be great.
The term IPC is also something that a lot of developers don't know, which is inter-process communication. This is how you communicate between applications. Android has a way of doing that, so you can actually just use that to talk between applications. There's plenty of ways of doing these things. Pipe, shared memory. These are just the ones that are like built into like every system has these things. But generally speaking, the platforms also offer like a messaging system back and forth between things, and you can take advantage of those. There's lots of options. Not to mention like local sockets. There's all sorts of things you can do. To solve whatever your communication need is on one platform. But it's interesting to say that even desktop products now are going the sandbox route. So Mac and Windows are going down this, and actually Snaps with Linux as well are going down this route of sandbox every application, and then they have to ask for permissions, unique permissions from the user to do things outside their sandbox, because most apps kind of isolate what they do. And if they do something outside, like you expect your photo app to need to access your photos because it shows them to you in a gallery, right? Whereas you don't expect I don't know, I know, sound recording application to want to access your photos, right? Like you'd be like, hang on a second,
weird.
what's yeah, exactly.
Right.
But you can make the choice as a user, right? Where in the old mechanism was everything was open and you just did whatever you wanted. Yay! No one does bad programs, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, viruses or anything.
mobile came along and changed the entire thing.
The one other thing I would just make a suggestion here when you're asking a question like this is saving data locally a lot of times can be like a shorter term thing. And eventually you do want to have it in Firebase or wherever. So if that's the case, then I would take however you're serving your data into your app and make sure that you've abstracted that, whether it's a provider or Riverpod or something else, so that you have the ability to handle things changing, or wanting to share it with another. Like if I download another phone, can I log in with the same login, and how does that handle? Things like that. So that would be my other suggestion, I would say, just based on your question.
Yeah, and briefly, we're going to move on because we have got questions to go through. But briefly, there's also ISAR and other like SQLite and other database solutions, and these allow you to. The idea here is this is meant for Flutter first, but the idea is to be able to just drop objects into. So you define like your email recipient, and look, application documents directory that's from path provider. ISAR open up that database in that directory, and then you can just filter those things out of your database and store things in, and it has a nice little explorer that you can use. But yeah, write, read, whatever. I don't know. You've got database queries. You've got like a bunch of things that you can do to like access that data. So well worth looking at. Like if you've got like a wide set of data, ISAR would be the one that I would use first of all. And it crosses web as well and all the platforms. So anyway, right, moving on.
We're getting to the point. I'm going to get ready for my sprint ending meetings and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and drop off. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Thanks you all for having me, and I'll see you next week.
All right.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Now the pressure's on me. I've got to be your only cohort now, your only sidekick. Pressure. Ooh. All right. Go ahead. Let's see.
Let's see how many we're going to try to smash through as quick as we can.
Yeah, we have 10. We have 10 more
sure.
after this one.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're going to get any time to do live coding. If we still have 10 more.
We're going to try. We're going to try and continue a little bit. At least a little.
So let me just take this one. So if we use state management, Flutter, Block, Riverpod, etc., why do we need stateful widgets? I love this question because this comes up frequently. State management is for communication between widgets, for shared data, which we like to call app state, that needs to be shared between widgets. Stateful widgets are for state data that is within the widget, really only needed there, like, for example, the current value in a text form or something like that, or the particular ordering of an ordered list when it's been derived from some database read, that kind of thing. So anything that's ephemeral, anything that's only related to the widget needs to be in a stateful widget. Anything that needs to be shared between widgets to have a persistence that's longer than a widget lifecycle needs to be outside, needs to be in something like Riverpod or Block or whatever your favorite system is.
To be clear, like we recommend it outside just because you can like use it and test it, and it gives you more flexibility. However, it's not a requirement. So what you can do, as long as you lift your state up. So let's say you've got a screen with 2 tabs at the bottom, right? You've got, I don't know, today's news, yesterday's news. I don't know, and they both need to. They both. That's a bad example. I know. Today's news, this week's news, right? So this week is going to include all of today, right? Now, what you want to do is you don't want to have to duplicate the state of what's in that list of today's news into this week's news. Instead, what you can do is you can lift those articles and their titles and all the information out into a widget above the tabs, above those 2 tabs. And now you can get to that data from those 2 widgets by going up the tree using inherited widget or find state of ancestor of type or whatever. As context.find, you just look at context.find and you'll find lots of stuff there. And that's essentially how RiverPod works, right? It goes up the tree to find the RiverPod state, and then leaps out of the tree entirely to use the RiverPod stuff, right? And you can do that in your own code as well, right? So the point here is just to say that there is app-wide state, there's other state that's not linked to your widgets and your directly. So, for example, and that is half the problem. You don't. So I've seen things done two different ways, and I'll explain these two briefly. That is people saying, "Oh, I'm going to make my entire app with stateless widgets and put all my state outside." Don't do that.
Yeah.
You're going to keep, just because it says stateful and state doesn't like mean anything about your state management. As we just said, they're separate things. Also, to say that there's reasons why you might want to have local state in your widget, because it's about the visuals of it. Like I give an example here, you're doing an animation. We do not put your animation. You could put your animation controller in your app state, right? But why the hell is it over here in your app state when it's just to do with this one instance of this one widget? And in that situation, you would put it with your widget inside the state, so that when the widget goes away, it gets detached from the tree, it cleans up the animation controller. When it comes back, it creates the animation controller. And then when you're doing something with whatever the flags are, it starts and stops the animation appropriately, like open, close, expand, or something, right? So that is kind of state that lives with your widget, whereas the state of maybe which items you have expanded, let's say maybe it's a group of expanding things, they might live in your app state, because when you come back to the screen, you may want to have them continuously stay open, not get reset when the screen comes back. So that's
and the way to think about that. The way to think about that is to always ask, how long should this data be valid for?
Yes.
If it's only valid while this widget is on the screen, that's clearly local state. If it needs to be valid going away from that widget and coming back, or over in this widget and also in that widget, that's clearly app state. That's clearly state management properties. Now you can use both in a widget. Consumer stateful widget is one of the RiverPod widgets, and that has access to both local state, and because it has a consumer, it's got a ref, so it can go look at RiverPod as well. So there is sometimes the need for both in a given widget. So it's not an either or. It is exactly what you need at any given time.
There's the term given that we've all heard so many times, which is everything's a widget in Flutter. And that's that notion of like a screen. So in Android, you might have activities, which are separate screens, and they have views inside them, right? Where in Flutter, it's one thing, and then you get all your screens are just widgets, and they have more widgets inside them, right? Now, what you use a widget for is depending on how you use it. So for example, you can say something's a section, a tab, a page, some part of your structure of your UI. And it can also be the entire app. So something you surround your entire app with that has that maintains your app state. So that, again, there's no requirement to use RiverPod or anything like that, right? Like you have the option of both, right? And the flexibility of however you want to approach it. Anyway, we talk about app state. We talk about state and app state for way too long. Then let's move on. Next question.
Yeah.
What is the best way to connect Bluetooth audio device, either plugin or native code for Android?
Just BLE stuff?
No, I think this is so there's Bluetooth plugins. There's tons of Bluetooth plugins. And we call BLE, which is Bluetooth Low Energy. And there is I'm trying to find it right now. There's a Bluetooth package made by Hue.
By me?
Hue.
By me? By me?
No, terrible joke. Yeah, so it's called Reactive BLE, Flutter Reactive BLE by meethue.com, which is Philips, which make the light.
Oh, by Hue. Okay, I get it.
Oh, shush. This enables you to do that sort of discovering connection to devices. This is kind of meant for messaging, but you can do scanning. But there's also there's I don't know if it'll do exactly the audio thing that you want to do, maybe. But there are plenty of Bluetooth packages out there. But to be clear, Bluetooth is the nature of Bluetooth is that you're talking about an ephemeral, like wireless connection to a device that may not always be there. A good example of this is you put your headphones on, your earbuds on, you walk away from your phone, and suddenly it disconnects, right? Or you get really bad signal, like really bad audio coming through or something, and then you come back, it gets better, right? Your app needs to know how to handle those situations. And so Bluetooth is hard. It's a real world situational thing. You can be disconnected, connected from devices, and also each version of Android, each version of iOS has improved the Bluetooth stack and maybe made bugs of their own in doing so. So you actually have to deal with the Bluetooth stack of bugs as well that are active. So it's complicated, is all I'm trying to get at, right? So yeah, if you can find something that's well tested, like the Meet Q one, which is used by all of the customers of Philips for all the light bulbs that they ever sell, those interactive smart light bulbs, there's your answer right there. I mean, that's a really great, well-tested package, right? Anyway, so I also kind of, anyway, just that's why I'd say the best way to use a Bluetooth package, connect, and then do that.
Hugh can use it.
Oh God, no, moving on. Any tips for selecting colors for a web app and making?
She left just before this. She left.
Any cool material theme generators? There's tons of theme generators, but that's nothing to do with Flutter. I mean, specifically, you just go online and do. What was that? There was I seem to remember there was a color swatch builder or some color palette generator. Like
right, and there's pub things to do this too. This is a frequently addressed issue, so I don't have any personal recommendations for this stuff, but yeah, also Material 3 has its own idea about correlated color patterns, and so you can build stuff up from just a color swatch and go all sorts of crazy ways.
I literally just Googled, and I told it to generate a random color palette, and there you go. So you can see what whites and dark colors look on each. Nice. And these are the color codes. I guess I don't know, like maybe you give it a hint. Like I want a lighter one. Oh look, there you go.
Oh, look at that. Oh, ooh, pretty.
And you can like fiddle around with your temperature and make
warmer.
I have no idea what I'm doing here. Like, oh look, yeah. Does it work? What does it look like? Oh, this is color size. These, by the way, down here are about color blindness. These are different types of color blindness, and this shows you how your palette looks for those people. So you can actually see, can you really accurately kind of see the difference between those colors? And if you can't, then you need to change the color palette. I have no idea.
Ooh, pro feature. Go pro. Yes, go pro.
Generate method. What's that? Oh, look. Oh, God, pro. Oh. Go away. Is there like another one? Look, start the generator. Let's see. Oh, look, there you go. Another wonderful palette.
Pretty.
But there's tons of places online for generating colors, and there's also theme sites as well for generating themes where they actually show you the widgets and what they look like with themes. There's a great who's the oh come on Mike Ryden. Mike. Oh, come
not on. My area.
Yeah, you know the guy. You met the guy.
Probably. I've met everybody, so yeah.
I met everyone. So Mike Rydstrom, has made a package called Flex Color Scheme. Flex Color Scheme. Let me see if I can get that up here. I just got a little demo here. Let me just see if I can bring this up.
I had lunch with Richard Stallman once. I mean, I've been everywhere.
Oh look, it's talking about me in this one, but yeah, whatever. So this kind of notion of you actually gives you like a themes playground, and you can see, given a certain, you can just change the color scheme, and given that scheme, you can see what all the, you can see down palettes down the right, and you can see what all the widgets would look like in the different color schemes. This is called Flex Color Scheme. I'll see if I can find a package for everyone.
There was also one on the Material.io page that was demonstrating the new Material 3 colors. If I can remember where that was. What would be the Google words to search that? Let's ask Bard. Bard will know.
Oh God! Here's the package. It's a Flutter favorite, Flex Color Scheme. I'll pop the link in the chat. And again, this is probably also, gives you that kind of need, gives you that help to kind of generate all your different themes and colors and everything else, and also it gives you the code so that you can just like implement it. So really nice way of like implementing all these things. But yeah,
I think this is true too. Isn't this true? You can generate a color scheme
yes,
based on an
we can
image.
actually you can do it before 310. So it's been around since forever. There's a palette. There's a palette package, and basically the way it works is you give it. So when you're downloading something and you've got a photo, you might want to put the button underneath the photo to be the same like colors from the photo, so it fits in with it, so it's not so sort of out of place. And you can do this by use the palette stuff. I won't go into it right now. To sample, it samples the image and works out what the bright colors, what the dull colors, what are these kind of things. Like what color works on top of the picture, things like that. So you can actually choose the right colors for the context of where it's being used. So I think that's a good point, Christian. Sorry, great.
Cool.
Moving on.
Next.
Danny Ackerman.
Oh.
Do you guys think that? Oh, this is the one that Danielle was talking about, right? Do you guys think that Flutter is held back by trepidation on the part of developers in learning to use a new language? If Flutter was done in Java or C#, do you think adoption would be high? I don't think so. No. Getting anyone to use any new framework is hard enough. The fact is, we're in another language. I think there is like we've always seen and heard about this from a lot of people. Like I've been at the very beginning. Doing all these Flutter Android conferences talking about Flutter and everything, and then this question comes up: why do I have to learn a new language and do that? And when you actually think about it, one developer, if they're only stuck in one language, they're pretty like locked into only doing certain things.
They're useless eventually.
Yeah, I mean, like let's say the language like Java goes the way of the dinosaur. I mean, Java is still quite popular, but the point is that. That, for example, for Android, that if people didn't move with Kotlin, they're losing out now. Like pretty much every app on the Android platform is written Kotlin now.
Yeah, and Dart was designed to be simple. It was designed to not shock you if you came from a JavaScript world, which is sort of the baseline for languages in modern day for now. And it just lately, with the Dart 3 release, got features from the more advanced modern languages like Kotlin and Rust and the patterns and destructuring and stuff. But there's nothing terribly unusual about Dart. Dart is really an amalgamation of the best of a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And to say that I'm not switching to it because it's Dart, I think you're being a little short-sighted. It's just the language, and you learn it. Yeah, you learn it. I think I stopped listing languages on my resume when I got to like 60 of them, because you learn things. You have to learn things.
Yeah, I like it's kind of interesting. Someone did one of these things on Twitter where it's like list how many languages, and I was like, I got to like 3 or 4 tweets, and I'm like, I need to stop here.
Yeah.
It's going way too long, but it's that kind of thing of like just because over the years I haven't used maybe Perl for a very long time, but I could go pick it up again, no problem, right? And
I could recommend a couple good books. I could recommend a couple of good books if you need to.
I wonder who wrote those.
I wonder who wrote those.
But the point here is that I think it's the same thing. Like you as a developer, you learn the syntax and style. I think a good part of programming is learning in like compilers and interpreters and learning how these languages are made. And in terms of doing that, you become, I think, a bit of a developer polyglot in the sense that picking up a new language, you can understand the reasons why they maybe change the syntax as they do for their language, and that kind of helps you sort of move forward. But yeah, coming back to the question here, I don't think it would have made a difference in adoption. I think, I mean, the thing is, if you'd chosen, for example, if they'd chosen Java, then it would have got lots of Android developers, or they'd chosen Kotlin, it would have got that, but it would have lost out on Swift, right? Maybe a lot of those people don't want to learn Kotlin or something like that. And it's like, when you choose one, you're always going to be stuck with the people that already know that language. To choose another language that is not one specific camp and kind of goes across the board, I think is actually the better approach overall. But anyway, yeah, that's a question. Thank you.
one of the advantages of learning a lot of different languages is that you get to bring forward different patterns of programming from other languages. Like when I saw cascades in Dart, I went, oh, that's just like cascades from Smalltalk that I was doing 30 years ago. So I knew instantly how to use them and why to use them. And I get to explain that to new people who never use Smalltalk. But I understand why cascades are there. And thank goodness for Gilad Bracha, who had worked a lot on the early Smalltalk and then on the Java compiler and then worked on the early Dart team to have brought cascades forward so that we have them in Flutter and Dart.
Let's power through these last questions and we're not going to get anywhere. Right, quick.
I know.
Simon, no, I have not started. This is
that's a quick one. No.
I will soon. Right, next. How to verify whether ... suffix on a text widget applies to ellipse appears in the UI. No chance. The way you do this would be with a golden test. Is the only way you can do it, which is how it visually.
Yeah.
Works. So what you can do is you can take a screen grab. You take like the screen. You can go look up golden test. There's lots of stuff on this on Flutter golden test. But you're basically taking a screen grab. You ship it with your test about what your widget looks like without the ellipsis, and then with the ellipsis, and then you can then say, okay, well, given the text this long and with the test applied, okay, it has got it, or when it doesn't. But there's no way to say with arbitrary confidence of without. There's no like flag that you get back from the operating system to say from the framework to say it's applied an ellipse or not. I feel that the ellipse stuff actually needs some modification. I have done for some time because what we don't get is middle ellipse, which is also quite a popular thing. So the ellipse also you don't get a start ellipse. Sorry, I'm trying to remember now. Maybe you do get a start ellipse now. Forget.
You only get end.
Is it only end?
Yeah.
I think it changes if your text is aligned to the right, it goes on the left.
Well, you can
flip to the left, it goes on the right. But there's no middle one, and it's quite often that there's certain things you want to display where the important thing is at the beginning and at the end, and you don't care about the middle. You would rather it, remove the middle. That's another thing that it doesn't do as well.
I have to say, I've looked into this. I've looked into the guts of how a paragraph is rendered because I did want to have some activity based on that. And this is some of the most opaque, unprobable, untestable code that is in the entire SDK. And I understand it's because parts of it have to interact closely with Skia to do things like how long is this rendered in this font? And so it has to hand that over to the lower layers in order to even figure that out.
I love text as a topic in programming. You say it's, I don't think that. I think it is what it is, and I think. But in terms of text is super. People look at text like here on the screen right here, right? You look at that text, you think it's super simple. There's the text, but to actually lay out that text on the screen, it's like a miracle. It really is. It's super complicated, right? When you actually get down to like what the symbols could be there, like imagine all the different languages that you have, the different properties of each language, how they construct their text together. It is a miracle that we can actually display text at all in all these different languages in very particularly one pretty much sound standard of Unicode. So yeah, I'm definitely one that thinks text is wonderful, and the fact that we can do it is even better. But it's super complicated.
If you ever want to just have a great way to lose a week of your time, go look at Donald Knuth's Tech Tau Edakai and how it has to deal with all the boundaries and kerning for every individual glyph to be able to lay out, and then to get the line lengths to be the same, how it has to compute the intersection and the introduction of so what you're using in LaTeX and Tech is this incredible set of computations that only somebody as smart as Knuth could have wanted to write code for.
So what it's what's it called? I'm trying to remember how you spell it now.
LATEX, LaTeX.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I'm pronouncing it the Greek way because that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. But
yeah. So if anyone sees it, there's actually some really cool stuff on the App Store. I don't know if this is the package. This is what latex. But there's actually like what's it called, like math? I think it's Flutter text. Oh look, I think, is this the one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, look, Tawadakai.
Text. And there's actually this is the complex layout algorithms for doing like layouts of all these mathematical symbols and things. This is super complicated, super common for that. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that because we're way off topic. However,
we're in the weeds. We're in the weeds. Let's go.
However,
next.
I wanted to cover one topic here, which is what most developers, especially app developers, that is all you're watching mainly, don't realize is there's developers out there that their job is just to make text render better on platforms. Their entire job at like an operating system company or something like that, or GPU, or graphics company or whatever else, is just to handle text rendering. Like that's their big thing. They know everything about text rendering. They know all the different like special cases and everything else. That is their job, just text rendering. You get the same thing with audio engineers. You get developers that are just in any one of these spheres. And it's the same reason why we talk about using these packages. The same reason why software packages exist is because if there's the specialist knowledge in any of these topics, you want the benefit of that specialist knowledge in one field, in one area, and you want to so let's say text layout, right? If you want to do your own text layout, let's say you didn't have Flutter doing it for you, then you would go find a text layout library and include that in your app. You wouldn't come up with your own text layout library because it wouldn't cover all the cases. It would be buggy, right? And the same goes for like formatting of date times and localizations and other things that are just really complicated. Anyway, moving on. I didn't cover that it's interesting
and getting ascenders and descenders properly. Yeah. Anyway,
next,
enough.
Richard. Oh, Richard, long time.
Ligatures. I don't even mention those. All right.
Is it possible to connect multiple phones with different OSs to exchange real-time data in close proximity?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yes. So it's interesting you say. So I believe Android and iOS both support Wi-Fi Direct. I'm pretty sure Wi-Fi Direct is supported by both, which allows you to exchange data over the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands. They have like their own like seeking stuff that you can use. Probably going to be limited in the way you do that. You can also do things where they're both, if they're both on the same Wi-Fi network, then they could both send out what's called broadcast packets. And that's where the two devices go. Like it's almost like a think of it like a sonar ping. You have the two devices that both connect to the same Wi-Fi. You open the app up and it goes ping, and then any device that recognizes that packet or waits for it will go, okay, I'm over here, and send a directed packet back to that device to say I'm here. And then what will happen is if you have your app send out these pings when you're on the screen constantly, like every few seconds, right? Then the other devices will see them, and then they send the packets back. So they both now exchange each other's IP addresses in essence, and they can both attempt to connect to each other, right, if you want to. And that's how these kind of like stuff from the same Wi-Fi talks. It's the same way that you, let's say you've got a media center or something, and you've got TV. Your TV can find your media center. They don't never even spoken to each other before, right? They don't even know. They know the same protocol, the UPnP local sharing protocol, but that's how they still need to discover each other. And there's whole discoverability protocols out there. Off topic here.
There's the package NSD. The package NSD says a Flutter plugin for network service discovery and registration. That's got Bonjour and MDNS and stuff built in it. So that's probably one of the things you want to look at.
But you say exchange in real time. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go to the internet, basically, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest,
have local games and stuff.
It really does scare me sometimes when I go thinking about this, about how many products and services require internet access now. That wasn't the way, and it hasn't been the way for the majority of I mean, we didn't have the internet, and we definitely didn't have it as fast as we have it now. And it just seems strange that now I might send something to someone that's sitting next to me, and it sends the data from here up onto the internet, and back down on my own internet connection to the person sitting next to me, right? When they're sitting right next to each other, we can just share it directly, right? And so you've now got third parties and all sorts involved in data exchange, which isn't needed.
I remember the comedy routine by Louis C.K. where he talks about, can you give it a minute? It's going to the space and back. Give it a minute. When you're like texting somebody and it takes a little while.
It's like you're texting someone around the world.
Space.
It's like I'm sending a message to someone in Australia and it's instantaneous across the internet, and it's like pretty much instantaneous, right? Like within a few hundred milliseconds at most, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hang on a second, that just went over to like some cables in the ocean across like continents, up to a satellite, back down to their continent or whatever else, across their cables networks to his house, and then I got a response back similarly, and it's like this is all stuff that you just don't even think about that happens in like global communication.
The LEO stuff, where we're putting all these satellites in space to have internet, they're doing basically cross-linking in order to get to the hubs that they have. And I remember I worked on Iridium for a while, for 6 months, and there's a little bit of me inside every space one of those Iridiums. I've written some code that's in space. So Iridium was just cell phones basically, and low-speed data, 2400 baud data. But again, you would talk to the satellite that's flying overhead, which is a switching nightmare. Oh my God. And then it would cross-link. And because the math of it works out that at some point there's a seam where it's going up on one side and down on the other. So everything's all going the same way, but there has to be a glue somewhere around the Earth. Just like there's an international date line, there's a glue that has to match one to the next. And then let's see, how many analogies can I bring in one phrase here? Anyway, so if you happen to be across the seam from where the person you wanted to talk to is, it had to go all the way around the Earth the other way to get to the downlink. It was like 11 hops to go all the way around. And when the seam was right over Europe on a busy day, and all the traffic for Europe had to go all the way around the other side of the world, I don't know how they ever dealt with capacity on that thing. So I'm amazed it still works. It's still out there and still working. You can buy an Iridium phone today still. Yes.
Right. Let's move on.
Okay. Let's move on, please. Let's move on.
Are you saying, Simon? Are you saying you recommend that people pull plugin code into their projects and not use plugins? No. I think I did go into this a bit more in detail when I was talking about it, but no. The point here is that if you've got a plugin that's not working and it's core functionality, then the answer is to fix it and bring it into your app, bring it into your product, right? It's I don't know if I would say that there's like any particular better way than that, to be honest. It's complicated, as everything is.
Apparently we answered it already.
All right. Next, what is metaprogramming here in talks to come in Dart's future?
Macros, yeah.
So a good example of this is this kind of like templating idea. So let's say you want to there's something common that you do in your app or in your code, and rather than typing that out in every single place, you put a macro in there, something in its place, and then when the code runs, it actually runs the full thing. Now this can be also done by generating code. So the code is actually there, and then what you're doing is you're putting like an annotation or some other sort of extra piece of metadata in there that when you run it, when you run your app, it generates, as part of the build process of the app, it generates the code that's below that annotation, let's say. Now we have that right now. It's called code generation.
Right.
But the problem here is it's a separate step to actually building your application. So the idea here of metaprogramming is to kind of more seamlessly bring these two things into alignment so that when you want to generate code, it can be part of the actual building of your application. In short, there's a bunch of other things that macros / metaprogram comes in handy. And I suggest you go look at the Flutter language project. I can find the URL quick for that. Bear with me. It's called the language. Is it in Flutter, the language funnel, or is it in Dart? I think it's in Dart.
It's in the language funnel, and it's under the still being specified column of the language funnel.
Yeah, here we go. So I'll pop this into the chat, and I'll bring this up on the stream here just so people can see it. This is the URL, dart-lang, GitHub.lang, language projects 1. This is what you call the language funnel. You'll see that in the bin spec section is static metaprogramming. That's the ticket for that. You
didn't bring that up yet, Simon.
I know I brought up I'll bring up the thing on the stream or not. Yeah. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you'll find it in here, and this is where they're trying to spec it out, understand the problem space, and then normally links the actual specs. But you'll find lots of conversation around potential ways you can do things, and what problems we might have and how we fix them. And this is how you contribute in the community to. There you go. Will we get macro features by into 2023? It depends on what you mean.
Maybe. Yeah.
But possible experimental form and no specified dates at this time. There you go.
Right.
So the point here is that these are where these sort of language features come, and this is what it works towards. Right?
The biggest problem is that once a version of it is committed into the language, it has to talk to APIs that have so far merely been internal. And like everybody who's dealt with writing builder operations, like the way JSON serializable works or freezed works or whatever, anything that does builder, all the authors there have had to be dealing with internal APIs all the time. But once macros become a major feature, there have to be frozen APIs that they can promise in future releases, because they don't want to have to keep having flag days where all of a sudden you're using a different internal API for your macro to make your code even compile. So, yeah, that's part of the concern. They got to get it right the first time is part of the problem.
It's the same problem with all the language features they've been adding, right? They need to think about them and spec them out appropriately. Because if let's say they did the record stuff and they didn't think about a use case, suddenly we're going to have bugs from that. And then there are a few bugs, as far as I know, and they are being fixed. But it's like that kind of thing, like you just don't want to break the language for everyone. The same goes for you don't want to just break everything for everyone, right?
And in case in point, the final attribute on classes now causing headaches for everybody that wants to do mocking for testing. Yes, it's insane. We're working on it. People are working on it. Smarter people. The top men are on this. Top men.
There is actually interesting enough. We'll just talk about this briefly, but I found that I was getting crashes, intermittent VM heap crashes and hot reloads since Dart 3.10. I raised the issue here in the community. I posted all the information. These are like raw, bad crashes, big bad crashes. And then it turns out quite a few other people are getting the same sort of crashes in the community, and it's a severe regression here on the engine, and they've worked on it and they figured out what's going on. And apparently I got this notice yesterday. It's been tagged. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, and it's now in review, and it'll be in the cherry picking. They'll be cherry picking it soon, and it'll be going in a hot patch. And these are the kind of things that we do as a community, right? You want to raise these concerns, you want to raise the issues, and then people can be looking at them, solving them. It's kind of interesting because, again, we had this thing before, and I briefly mentioned this now, and that is they go, oh my God, there's, I don't know, 5,000, I don't remember how many issues now, 5,000 plus issues on Flutter. It must be crap because there's always bugs. A, who says they're bugs? B, they could just be feature enhancements, right? But also, more appropriately, why is there other alternative over here not got 5,000? Have they solved all their bugs? No. Just the bug count doesn't mean that they've solved it. It just means they've not been discovered, right? Or they're not being worked on. That kind of thing, right? So conversely, just because the bug count means nothing, right? You can't it's looking at those. It's like what is it when people make statistics work for them? Like they can look at these numbers and go, oh, it means this, and it, think of it subjectively.
Another way to look at it is a lot of people care what Flutter is doing right now.
Yeah.
So it's the size of the audience that actually has a factor in determining the issue count. So the fact that there's 5,000, I'm happy, because that means 5,000 different people all had different things that they wanted Flutter to do, and for some reason it's not exactly the way they want it. But that means that many people are interested in how things work. I also say to people, if you want to contribute to the Flutter project, you don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be even a documenter. If you find something you don't like, or you find something that you don't understand the documentation for, file an issue. That contributes. To be able to file issues. So never underestimate your ability as an individual to make a difference with the releases and the quality of the releases and the range of features of a release, because your issues help them decide what to do next.
All right, final few questions.
We're on the home stretch.
Tell us I know. Anyway, hello. Is there a limitation on messages between isolates? Also, is there any good posts on isolate internals? So, as far as I know, there is not a length limit on the message between isolates. There is a memory limitation on them between isolates, and that's just because every platform has a memory limitation. I can't send 10 petabytes of data between one isolate and another if I don't have 10 petabytes of memory available to me, right? So there is always a limit, but there's no self-imposed limitation as far as I know. I've seen messages between isolates be, tens of megabytes, so not an issue there. Also, is there any good posts on isolate internals? There's a good question there. There is a Dart. There was a new page added to Dart's documentation on concurrency in Dart. I'll bring that up briefly here. Is that coming up? No, that's the wrong. That is the wrong page. Hang on, let me find it. I've lost track. Here we go. Where is it now? There we go. So this goes through for a few things and talks about the isolates and how the weighting works, and this is quite handy. I'll pop this link in the chat. There is also a page by one of the developers. I can never remember his name. Hang on. I'll see if I can find this here. Ralph. I can't remember his full name. This is another article I recommend. Let me just find it here. Hang on. Here we go. This is it's a bit out of date. Last updated 6th of October 2022, but not that much. This is still within the last sort of 6-ish months, right? So this goes into the internal workings of the Dart system, and there's lots of isolates and all the kind of internal workings. And this is written up by one of the Dart language team members, the Dart team members. So, I mean, heap snapshots, how the code works, how hot reload works, all that kind of fun stuff. I'm sure is in here somewhere. And this does cover isolates, so I would say I'll pop that link in the chat as well for people that want to know. And I'd say that's the place I'd say go check it out. I'm not sure how much information. Truthfully, I've not actually seen much documentation on the internal workings of isolates. Pardon me. Jeez. Anyway, hopefully it helps. Tell us if you'd learn more. And make a talk. There you go. Make a post and a Medium article and all that one stuff.
There you go.
When I run Flutter app with a release flag, it gives me the error failed to read key upload from key store JKS algorithm list not available. I have the latest Java version. That's interesting. I'd say you've probably got an invalid key store file. Like, have you actually opened up that JKS key store file in a hex editor? Have you used Keytool? So there's actually a terminal a command line program that comes as part of Java for signing part of Android or part of Java called Keytool, and that allows you to look at the key stores, see what the keys are, and see all those things to see if it has those parameters. There's also Jar Signer, which does a similar job, right? I'm assuming that the other thing you might have had is that you didn't follow the guide on, again, the Flutter documentation for releasing and deployment of your app. So let me just dig this up just to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. If it loads for me. And let me bring this up on the screen. Put a link in here. So this, what is going on? There we go. Whatever. So this is the link I just posted in the chat, which is building for Flutter, and then here signing the app. And this talks about how you use KeyTool to generate your key store file. If you have not done this, that's why you're having a problem, because it can't read the key store file, right? It's not a text file, it's a binary file. You have to use KeyTool to generate it, or another similar programs. And then you need to make this key.properties file in your Android folder of your project. Do not commit this to your Git stuff. It should actually be ignored in the normal Git ignore that's shipped as part of Flutter, but just saying don't commit it. And this is where you put the password that you've used in the previous step, and the alias name that you used in the previous step. If you used upload, I think they use upload here, do they? Yeah, alias upload. You can call it whatever you like, and where it's stored. And this can also be relative to the I think it's the app directory. If it's not, I think it's the Android app directory, not the Android directory. I forget. So you don't actually have to put like the full path like it suggests here. But as long as it can find where the file is, then it means that when Gradle signs your app, it will work. And this tells you, I think it's already configured to read the key store file by default you generate. And what you do is you say this. You create a silent configuration and set it as in your release build type that uses the release signing configuration. And this is using the key properties from this file. So this is already all documented, so I don't need to go through it. But the point here is you need to make sure that you're generating your key store and it's correct. Sounds to me like that's not the case, and that your key store file is invalid in some fashion. Maybe you've got the key properties, but it's not set up for it. Also, I would say that if you're using the latest version of Java, like 17, 18, something like that, then you need to make sure that you upgrade. There's actually a notice here at the top, which also could be a problem. Where did they put it? Is it what's new? No. Damn, I can't. There is a release notes. Was it release notes? There is. I'm sure you'll find it, and I've completely forgotten where. There was a banner, and I know it links to a section of the documentation, but I forget where it is. But basically, there was a breaking change recently of. No, I'm not going to find it, am I? The one time I want it. Anyway, there was a change in Android's deployment system, and it meant that you had to upgrade. You have to upgrade to use the latest version of Java. You actually have to upgrade your Android plugin, otherwise you have problems. So you maybe experience something along those lines. So I would ensure that you are using the most recent Android Studio, Android plugin package, and that's in your top build.gradle. If you open up your Android folder in Android Studio, it actually it'll tell you can upgrade in the latest version of Android, in Flamingo or whatever. It will tell you need to upgrade, and it will take you through the steps. And there's also a guide on Flutter.
I was just going to say, from time to time, it's useful to make sure that all your files are checked in. Delete copy everything that's unique out of your Android folder. Delete the Android folder, then do flutter create dot in that directory. And the reason for that is, as Flutter changes, there are different things it puts in the Android directory as canned things that you're building on top of. And it's good to do that from time to time to make sure that you're refreshed with the latest junk.
I found it. Let me bring it up. Suppose when you're not looking, there you go. So supporting new Android plugin APIs, it's under breaking changes, and this is the one. Oh no, this isn't the one. No, this is Android plugin API. Sorry, no, it comes something completely different. Sorry, no, it's not that.
It's out on the internet somewhere. I'm sure there's some sort of search engine. Is it what's it called?
Yeah,
Alta Vista. You can go find things with. Yeah.
Oh, this is
Lycos. Go find it with Lycos. Yes.
Oh my God. What decade are you from? Right.
I know.
It's
The
really,
early web. Lycos was written in Perl. It was actually pretty cool.
I remember. Yeah. Let me just see if I'm going to try one last try here. Sorry.
And DuckDuckGo is mostly in Perl too. So
Really?
it's nice. Yeah, the DuckDuckGo people are good Perl community participants. Actually, I think some of the core stuff.
It did. I can see I found the issue tickets.
Nice.
I still can't find where it is on the website. The documentation around it. But yeah, there's documentation around upgrading Android Gradle plugin, HEP, and Android. That's it. And this is the one. Before I say, let me just check. Yes, this is the one. This is the one. I'll pop it in the chat. Here we go. Sorry. Android Java Gradle migration guide. It is from Breaking Change. I knew it was there somewhere, but I don't know. Anyway, but it talks about you're opening up your Android folder in Android Studio. You'll get like the warnings. You follow the upgrade assistant. It just works. Or you can go through manually, go into your wrapper, update the wrapper package, and you can also upgrade your Android Gradle plugin version in build.gradle. But anyway, these are all things that are fun things to happen. And this is the same thing with this. We talk about this. You'd have these problems if you're building an Android app anyway, right? And we talk about this. People say, "Oh yeah, like it's harder with Flutter because you only have to fix the iOS problems if you're deploying to iOS, right? If you had a separate app for iOS and Android, you still have to deal with these problems, right? Like platform specific problems. Just because you're building Flutter doesn't mean you're disregarding the platforms. But hopefully what we can do with Flutter is that you're not having to depend particularly on platform behavior on each different platform. It just becomes more, these things are no different if you're doing separate packages.
Follow up.
App is currently live, but I cannot. Oh God. Whoa. I really, really hope that when you deployed your app, you enabled App Store managed keys. So go look up the app integrity section of your Play Store account. I really hope you did. So go look up. So in your Play Store, go to your Play Store account, go to your app, into the Play Store console, go to app integrity, and there's a bit where it says it will sign your app for you. If you don't have that enabled and you mess up your key store, you have lost access to your app on the store completely. Right? The key store is your signature for that, so to prove that you are the owner of this product, right? So it could be that when you copied the file or when it was saved in some fashion, it got messed up. It maybe got put through I've seen it before, like files that get committed on Git, and it thinks the text files, it converts the /r/n or the new line carriage return into just carriage return and screws up a binary file. I've seen all sorts.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on. And again, use Keytool, analyze the file, see if you can work out what's going wrong. Hell, open up in a text editor, see if this is a text file. Maybe you saved the wrong file, right? Maybe it's still on your friend's machine. You can go rescue it if you need to. But
hope you're still friends.
Even if you lose that file, so if you use the Play Store sign-in keys and you lose your upload key store file, that's completely fine, because then what you do is you generate a new one and you go through the process of submitting a new upload key to Google, and then once you get approved, they'll change it out, and then you can use that upload key in the future. So, but that's only if they are set to re-sign your application. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you haven't got a problem. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. All right. What are we going to do? This has gone on quite a lot longer than I realized.
Yeah, it's kind of we're kind of at wrap up sort of time. Is there anything that we can look at the code from last week that we could do quickly? Probably not. You're going to just get into it, and it's going to be another hour and a half. I can already tell you're in an hour and a half mode.
I'm not. I'm actually quite hungry right now. I need to go away and get some dinner.
Driven by food schedules. That's good. That's good.
Exactly.
Like
However,
that.
I think we'll just bring this up briefly. Let's see if I can. I mean, we promised it, and I want to deliver, but the questions there did go on for some time, so we'll do a little bit here. We'll do a little bit. Let's see.
Did we see any questions on Twitter and stuff over the week about it?
Oh yeah, we said that, didn't we? We should.
Yeah, you said that. I never say things like that because I don't want to go look at Twitter.
I should probably go looking quickly and see if I got any. We said under a hashtag, right? So we can like search a hashtag. I think.
I hope so. I don't remember. We have to go watch last week's show and remind what we did. That's been I've had a lot of things happen in 166 hours, so I don't know.
I think we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Top, latest. Hang on, let me look at latest. I'm looking at the wrong one. Hang on, latest. Adverts. Don't want adverts. Lots of stuff.
Never want ads.
No, I think we're good. So, so this is what we start doing last week. Let me see what I can do here.
All your cards. Pick a card, any card.
These were our sort of matching cards. We started doing this animation, didn't we? So I guess we wanted it to like. I mean, what do we want to do? Like we've got.
Well, we don't have any scoring yet. We don't have any way of solving when you turned over two that match.
Right. So we could say
none of that's in there. Just the turning mechanism is there. Just the flipping stuff is there.
So we want.
No, the back half of the card. We need the back half of the card to work.
Should we do the back half of the card? And then if you turn to we can also talk about the let me take these earbuds out because I'm honestly wearing earbuds for like this long. Hopefully it switches over nicely.
My buds from the A company are actually still comfortable.
That's good. That's as good, yeah. Right.
I've got cheap buds from there. Not the other A company where they're expensive. The cheap A company for buds.
You can hear me, right?
I hear you.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So let's see what it is. So this is where we got to last time. So what we were saying before is when you tap on the card and it flips, what we actually want to do is hide the contents when it flips over. So it looks like you don't see what's on the back, or we don't render that, right? That's one option to do this. We could also put two widgets in a stack and have them flip in opposite directions. And what happens is when they get to so you can imagine that we've got two widgets, and when they get to this point, we're essentially turning one off and turning one on. So what happens is you see the front and back of each one. So if they're like this in front of each other, when they get to the halfway point, you do this. And now you're seeing the front of this hand, this hand could be like hidden when it gets halfway, right? So hang on, let's see. You see the back of my front hand, and we get halfway, both hands are turned. We hide this one, and then you see the back of the other hand, right? And it's that kind of little like funky UI thing that you can do to kind of show the front and back of two things. Sorry, I can't understand. Oh, okay. Well, we could try that. Or is that something else we're talking about? Is that?
That sounds right.
We're talking about something else. Anyway, let's carry on here. So first of all, let's just see what happens to it. What we can do to let's speed all these cards up a bit more.
Oh, that last comment was for me because I had said no more live questions unless it's about the coding.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Let's see now. How about a breaking glass effect? Yeah, we can do that as well. There is actually so there's some really cool effects that you can actually do. Won't do that just now. We just got a limited amount of time. Perhaps we should do a different session, which is just like live coding only or something like that. Maybe we can do something. Right. Anyway, so halfway. So what we could say is we could add a listener to our controller.
Yeah.
And this function is going to get run when animation updates. So let's call animation update. On animation
we ought
update.
to do a show. We ought to do a show with Flutter Animate just to show how much simpler it is when you use that.
Yeah, true. But I think it's very key for people to understand how the platform actually works, right?
Sure, sure.
Anyway, so now we've got this like on update thing. We can now say, whenever the animation gets updated, we get to choose. We can look at the value of the animation right now where it's at. So we'll say value. We can say if the value is less than halfway, do this, else do this other thing, right? Now, what's really cool about this is if we now say show back is set, I guess that's true to begin with, right? Because they're flipped over, so you see the back of them. And if show back is on, then we don't want to see the content, so we'll do something like what we can do is wrap this in an opacity widget. There's another way we could just add and remove the widget. Again, there's various good things and bad things for doing.
You could replace it with like a solid red for a backing or something.
Yeah. Actually, it's not a bad shout. Shall we?
Yeah, instead of opacity, it'd be like.
Well, no, this is for the content. But if we change this color here, we could actually say if it's the back, maybe use the secondary color. Is there even a secondary color in the new color scheme?
Yeah.
And
then we need to get rid of the icon, but that's.
All right. So.
But yeah, but I like where you're going with that. That's cool.
All right, so let's do this. Actually, I kind of feel like primary should be the back, and then the front should be white. Yeah. We could use a theme, but I'm just going to do that right now. Right. So now what we want to do, we have the show back flag that controls our UI. And what you want to say is if it's less than this, now it would be. Remember, this function called on every update of every frame. We want to make sure that we're being very frugal with our rebuilds, because we don't want to rebuild 60 times a second unnecessarily. So what we say here is say if the value is less than 5, and if show back is equal to true, then is equal to false. That means it's flipped, going in one direction. Then we say show back equals true, and we do set state on that because we needed to rebuild the widget, right?
Isn't the animation already going to drive it to rebuild?
No.
Okay.
It will rebuild. To be clear, actually, it only rebuilds this one widget.
Okay.
The transform, again for optimization.
Right? I get it. Okay. Yeah. So you're changing the actual content that's being flipped, and so you have to also tell it to do that.
So also again, it's like we don't want to keep changing everything on every frame. And then this one, I may have this backwards. We'll find out. And the idea is that if it's greater than halfway, then if we're already showing the back, then we no longer want to show the back. So we flip the flag, right? So let's see if I got this the right way around. Okay, we're looking at all the back.
Probably a blank white square flipping to a.
Well, let's have a look. We're looking at the back, and now if I tick 2, look.
Oh, first time. You got it on the first call. Oh my God. You're hired, man. You're hired.
Have I got a job? Have I got a job?
You got a job. That's right.
I got a job.
Add the scoring and we're done.
Right? Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. That is awesome. You got it in one. I can't believe that.
It's always,
wow.
It's always great when that happens, right? So we did post this code.
I'm excited for you.
On Gists, and we will post this updated one on Gists as well. So so on our home screen, where we select the cards, this could also be called game screen, and we could start a new game. You could do all that kind of stuff. I think what we'll do now in our multi-card, above our multi-card layout, let's
There's your title.
Oh dear. Oh no. Don't stop that. Nash got that one. Blimey.
Yeah.
Let's do colors dart. 900. Oh, blue and grey. That does not work. Especially that blue. Hang on. Let me just. Even worse. Orange works with grey, doesn't it? Dark orange. I know, I'm just deep orange.
Yeah.
The grey's the wrong grey. I don't really want grey. Let's
I'm trying to answer this question while you're doing that, but
different.
I don't have any idea. Was I talking about books earlier? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, your Pearl books.
Oh, the Pearl books. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I forget so easily that I've had this huge impact on the interactive web because of my books. And then I don't know that that's what you're talking about. All right. Yes. Lighter gray, someone says.
Right. I'm not fond of these. So I don't want to spend a lot of time fiddling around with colors. I'm not fond of this right now. I feel like I need to find something else. But orange. I don't like that. All right. Let's just see what orange looks like. Otherwise, I'm going to give up on this. I might have just. That's a bit better, I guess. I don't know. Let's just go with it. We can also do equal spacing. Obviously, like we're just fiddling around with the column stuff earlier when we did last week. But yeah, let's do this.
That's so cool looking, and it can go in parallel. That's the best part.
Yeah. So you can just do.
Wow. Because each one has its own animation controller in each one of the cells, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right?
That's where you use state. That's where you use state in the widget.
Yeah, this is why we have state on these widgets, right? So let's do this now. So let's do this. So we need the widgets. We need the cards to flip back around once a certain time expires, right? So you have to have a match. Or would we say that when you click on a third card, it should get rid of your first card? So if I reset this,
no.
Here,
no. You flip one. You flip the second. If they match, you win, and it flips and it leaves them up. If they don't match, it says and then flips them back over.
Right.
And you can't pick another one until both of them have closed again.
Yeah. So what we actually do need is a way of notifying.
We need a scoreboard. We need a global.
We need something global to manage that global state. A scoreboard, and then when a card is flipped, it tells it, and then we get a response to say, should you flip back or not? So once you flip two, we can flip back. All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So this should be quite straightforward. So because we've got the scoring already. So on our I said it, I did it.
You said quite straightforward.
I know.
I'm just going to challenge that. I'm going to challenge that already. Not my first rodeo.
So
there's going to be some corner cases in this. There's going to be some communication issues.
I was like, oh, why did I say that? All right, let's see. So text.
This is an old programmer talking, a very old programmer.
Or something. Yeah. All right. Now, that is definitely not great. Let's get that bigger.
This will be simple. This will just be simple. I can do it in 10 minutes. No.
Did I forget to set my theme? Did I forget to set my theme brightness? It always gets me as well. Colors. When you set up themes, you get the color. You say this is dark, but it means is it on a dark background or is it on a light background? Like dark and light can also get mixed up, right? Like it's there we go, dark. So we've got a white. At least we've got a white.
I agree with this comment though.
What's that? You have to read it out.
I hate this. You got to read it. I hate designing because it takes more time than coding, and I'm never satisfied.
Right. All right. Let's do this, and then what we'll also do here is say, we could say this style of this is text is theme of context, text style, text theme dot is it headline large. Let's do that. Oh, there, look at that lovely big score. Right, and then we'll say what I prefer to do here is put this out in case we need to use it multiple times.
Yeah.
All right. So now our score number. So we actually need. Here's a good example of what we're talking about state. So we're not going to use. I'm not going to use Riverpod. I'll keep this all Flutter only. So what we need to do is keep that score available and bring it up outside of the local state. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this stuff up here for now, and I'm going to make a app state class. And this is going to have a score in it, which is a value notifier of an int, and we start off with a score of 0. Nice and simple, yeah?
Yep.
That is app state. Yeah, simple, right? Our score. And then what I want to do is provide that state, provide an instance of this down my tree. So we can say app state. So when we construct out, when an application gets created, it passes one in. And to our application, we're going to call this, we'll call this flip app. Should we rename it flip app or something? Flip app.
Sure.
Then this needs that final parameter for the app state. And now we've got that coming in. It's not constant anymore. That's fine. All right. So I didn't call it app state. Let's call it app state just to not get mixed up. All right, so now we've got this app state coming in. We need a way of getting to this app state anywhere in our widgets, let's say, right? So what we can now do is we make a little shortcut function. This is kind of common.
Constant context find ancestor of exact type.
Yeah, so we could say app state of. So what we can do something like this: build context, and then as Randall was saying, we can say context.find, and these are ways that you go up the tree or down, but to find stuff. So here we can find a widget, a render object, or a state above us, and it goes up, walks up the tree. So in this case, we want to find the widget which contains our value. In this case, that is flip app. We can find widget of exact type. We can also find state. If there's a stateful widget, you can find that. You can also keep it private and return things from a state. There's some really clever things you can do. And then we're going to put an exclamation mark at the end to say we want to always get that, and then app state. So what this line is doing is wherever we are, let's say we're on the home screen, it's going to go up the tree until it finds this widget, which is flip app, and then it will then return this widget object instance that we created at the very beginning, and then return the app state field of that, right? So now down here where we have our where are we?
Sure, score 100 somewhere, right?
Yeah. So we actually do some things in here that are probably. I mean, we're going to move this up. So we generate our card set.
And you got to have that all in app state.
We need to move this out. So we can do a couple of things here. So first of all, cards. Move that out of our home screen now, and we're going to put that in app state. And then we have a say start game function. And when we start a game, I bring our icon selection out as well. This could be global, static, various things. I'm just going to pull it into here. And yes, this is the underlying. So the mechanism that provider works. So we're not using inherited widgets here. And provider uses a thing called depend. So it's depend on inherited widget of exact type, this function here. That means that whenever that widget gets updated, the inherited widget, it will then rebuild these widgets and tell them that the thing has changed. We're not doing that here. We're just going up the tree to find some state that we've got. and each time this function runs, it traverses the widget hierarchy, which is not normally that expensive because going up is a lot different from going down. Because going down, you have to go through every level of every widget. Going up, you're only going to your parents, so it's still cheaper. However, with dependent widgets, once you depend on a widget, you have the direct reference always to the dependent widget within your widget, so it shortcuts it.
It's often cheaper to go to your parents. Yes.
Yeah. So, I will be right back. I just need to get something.
Yeah. So he's getting something that is probably timely, essential. So there are a lot of mechanisms already built into Flutter to do this kind of tree walking, because you had to have it in place for things like theme. Theme, of course, has to propagate downward, and they wanted theme to be able to be subdivided so that parts of your tree have different themes. So once you have to have that mechanism for theme, you have to, it's there, and you can use it for all sorts of other things too. And so that was sort of then where inherited widgets came about, which is how theme actually works. And then we also get localizations based on inherited widgets. We get, what's the other one? The router is based on an inherited widget that's sitting in Material App, or started by that. And this is sort of the constant sort of thing that, yes, the Flutter team did provide state management, but they only had it in this one axis of having a context tree that you can walk up and get to some parentage data. And then we, as third party, especially in the form of Remy, took that and said, let's build upon that and build things that are a little easier to use when all we're talking about is data management. And then we'll build RiverPod, which even gets away from those dependency strategies to our own bespoke strategies.
All right.
I think I filled in well for you being gone.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I talked about how themes work and how inherited widgets work.
All right. So let's use this app state of. So we brought the card down. We did bring out instantiation of our cards up to start game. Start game. Yeah, there it is. Pop that in there. So this is what we do when we want to start a game. We can also start a timer. You can have like a timer, and we can space score the time. And maybe it counts down. That would be nice. Okay. This was our challenge the last time, so I'll pop that at the top here. Put cards until they all match. And then down here, when our home screen starts, we want to say flip app dot app state of context dot and then start game. So this performs exactly the same code that was here. We just migrate it up, right? So now we can do the same sort of thing. So we want to get the cards to display the cards here. So what we can now do is suddenly we realize, oh, I want to get the cards and I want to use it here. Now, what I would do in the normal case is, well, what you could do in the normal case is say something like late final app state, right? And then in here we can say app state equals this, and then we get to use it here, and we get to do this. The annoying thing about doing something like this is now we need to implement this same pattern everywhere. Well, this is a nice, great job for a mixing class. Is it class? I can't remember what it is now. Mixing class now. Yeah, and we can say mixing class app state. App state. I don't know. Let's call it that. T on state T. Can we do that? Is it with? Is it extends? Extends now, apparently. Okay.
It extends? No. Mixing can't be an extend. Oh, yes, it does.
And T extends widget. Stateful widget, sorry. State. This is the magic source. This should work. Oh, okay. Let's see what we missed. Cannot be term mixing because it extends a class other than object. Okay, I know I can do mix. If I do mixing like this, it works. So is this because Okay, that works. I'm going to leave it with that. That's what I normally do, and it works.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go look at the class mixing stuff, and maybe class mixins are completely different from mixins. Whatever. Right. So in here now, what we can do is, again, we bring up that piece. We can then
very different from Richard Nixon.
Now what we can
US
do
joke.
is if we now take this line, chuck it in here, a neat little trick takes place. So what this is now going to do
code reuse. Oh wow, code reuse.
Yeah. So what we can now do is whenever you access app state with any widget that implements this mixin, it'll go up the tree to find it the first time. Because it's final, it won't set it, right? And because it's late, so it won't set it again. It won't go up the tree twice. So implicitly, final means it's only going to be set once, and late meaning won't try and do this until you first use it, which would be at the right time. If I didn't have late, it would try and do it when the state object gets initialized, which means the context is not valid, it would break. So late final, this magically makes it work. And now we can now just do with this app state mixin, we can get rid of all of this stuff, and it magically will just say app state, and it just works.
Wow.
Simple stuff, right?
That's clever.
Now, what's really cool about this is now, if I take this app state in widget, and we go down to the other places where we need it, in this case, down to our cards. So here's our card state. If we pop it on here, let's say app state, let's put app state mixin. I like that. So now it's on here, we can now do the same thing. So what we're saying, when we flip it and when we're showing going forwards to show the front, because we're starting on the back, then we want to do something like app state dot show card shown. We have like an ID, though. We also have card data. There you are. So we use that widget dot data, and then if we make that function up in our state, we'll come back to the limit to do logic when showing card, and I guess we want so this will then check to see if a previously shown card matches, and then when a card, if they click on reverse, we kind of want to say card hidden or hide card, I guess. Card hidden. I don't know.
Naming things are.
Well, let's go for a first run at this and see how it feels, because we may refactor it.
Yep.
Logic. Hiding card. So we have like a visible card list that we can then compare to. And then we're saying that when 2 gets shown, so really we actually want to flip the cards back, but not from their direct reference, right? So for example, what I mean by that is you click on 1, it crashes because I haven't hot restarted and it's trying to run my code. So let's let it crash and I'll hot restart, and that will work now. There we go. Ooh, that's interesting. I've changed my theme and my icon color has gone white. Oh, because I changed it from dark to light. That's why. I did flip it. See, I thought I broke it. I did. All right, so flip. So once I flip 1 and then I flip the second one, we need to know that these two card widgets have been flipped, and if they don't match, then it needs to flip the old one, the second one I clicked on back. Now I know about the reference of the first one because it's when I clicked on it, but I need to know about the reference of the previous one so that we can hide it, right, and flip it back. Right. So the way I can think of doing this is that when they're flipped over and shown, they register themselves to be part of the shown set, which is essentially what this does. And when they're hidden, they're removing themselves from the shown set. Then if the 2 cards are shown and they don't match, we then essentially tell all the cards that are currently shown they're now hidden, right? So we need a way of referencing this data. So what we're going to do instead, and this is about we would say void hide card, right? And what this is going to do is say controller dot reverse. It's got controller dot reverse. Sorry. Oops. Come on, there we go. And then this interface hide card is something that we want to call from the top, outside of the idea of what this class is. So we make an abstract class. We can actually make this a function, to be fair. I'm just going to show you what it is with a class. You can also do a function callback, and we'll call this card interface, right? Hide card. And then we say state, our state widget implements this. So with this implements interface. Oh, we can use an interface class, can't we?
Oh, yeah. Dart 3 now. Locking Dart 3 in.
Abstract interface. There we go. We can get used to all this stuff, and then we'll need to override that. All right. So now we've got this abstract interface. If we now go up to the top, I'll move it up above app state. And then what we want in here is also this interface actually does need a second function. And that is a function that is, where is it? Oh, here it is. We need a way of getting the card data. So card data, get data, right? Something like that. Now, if I go back down to our card widget, which implements the interface, we'll say one missing. We implement that, not at the bottom, but reasonably where we have the other one. So pop out the top here. And this is going to do widget.data, let's say, which is the card data that we provided. Now, this card shown, card hidden, is more about maybe we rename this to add cards, add shown cards. Let's do add card. Not really the right name, but I'm just going to do this for now. Remove cards. The right way around? No. When we go in reverse, we want to remove the card. Oh, remove card 2. Oops. Add card. It's kind of backwards, actually. I'm actually going to flip these around. So if it's not flipped, then we go forwards and add the card. That makes sense, right? We add card and animate forwards.
Right.
And then if we're already flipped, then we want to reverse the card and remove it. Cool. All right. So now if we go up to our function at the top, so we've got these two. So we go to our game. Here's add card. So when the first one's added, so say add, let's put add card. But it's not card data, so that's my first problem. I don't want to ship the data. I want the card interface. So this would be card interface.
You really kind of want to have some way of always keeping track of the fact that there's 0 or 1 or 2 cards that are in the process of being shown or in the process of being hidden. So that if somebody flips something over and it's 3 or 2 already, then it'll just ignore it.
So this is where this comes in, right? So
okay.
When we hide a card, we could tell it to remove itself. My assumption was, let's do this. Let's do this and see where we're going.
Maybe have a set where it adds
itself. Two ways I could refactor this to be better, but let's just get it done and working, and then we can look at it. So add card, we want to add it to a visible card list. So this is these cards are all cards. Let's rename to all cards, and it's not going to be final. It's going to be late though. And then we'll also have our minimize that. We're also going to have our visible cards, right? And we want it to be a list of card interface. So we can actually do this slightly differently than this, right? Now, when we make a card visible, when we add a card, we're going to say visible cards, add card. And then when we remove, we're saying visible cards, remove card, right? That's quite simple. Now, whenever a card gets flipped, it's added to the visible cards list. Then,
Cool.
in here, if visible cards.length is now equal to 2, we can then say, do these match, right? These cards match. So we can say visible cards 0, cards 1, first, second, or left and right, and we say dot data because we want to get that data. And if first dot, and we said this before, was so we were going to use matched and keep the track of them there. Yeah, so that's fine. So first dot icon is equal to second dot icon, and they match, right? So what do we want to do if they match? We want to add to our score. So score dot value plus equals, and I guess we'll do the combined score of the two cards. Why not? It's a bit fun because they're random scores, right? And then we also want to mark the first one as matched and the second one as matched. Now, this kind of comes to a problem that we had before, which was I did this copy with, and I did this for mutability in the way we were approaching it before. If we want to keep it, when they're matched, they stay flipped, right? So we need a way of replacing the card that we've got in first inside the card set, all cards, with a new copy. So we're not doing mutating data like this. So what we say is cards dot index of all cards. Sorry, all cards dot. Right, why is this complaining? That's an in. Oh, I don't know. I made my typing anyway. All cards dot no replace, is there? That's kind of like you can do insert, you can do index of. It's kind of annoying. Anyway, so we got all cards dot index of first, because it's always going to be there, equals first dot copy with matched true, right? Do that twice, one for first and second. And what we could do is say replace card and do something like that. So we could take this out here and make a function called replace card. And then this is card data. And
whenever you start doing linear scans of a list, I always think, no, that should be a map or a set or something.
Yeah, and truthfully, that's probably what you could do. But the index, there's other things, right? We can look at that.
Yeah.
So now we can just do replace card first.
Just an old school hint. I mean, anytime you see linear search of a list, it's like, warning bell. Warning bell.
Guess what you want. Replace second with. I guess we want replacement. So this is replace. Whatever. Anyway, so that's a bit more descriptive. Okay, so now they're replaced. Interesting enough, we actually need to tell the cards that they've been matched, or at least we need to rebuild the UI. And this is the problem with state. Now we've changed our state. We want to make sure that we update the UI with that state. This is just a list right now. That's no good. So what we actually want to do is convert this, and we'll use another value notifier. Put it this time. All cards is a value notifier. Or we could do like in time make app state itself a change.
Change notifier.
A change notifier, and then we notify on that. But this works as well. So all cards is a final list, and now what we just do is say all cards dot value
That won't notify if a member of the list changes, though,
I was
right?
about to get to that. You're spoiling my stuff.
Taking your thunder. Sorry, but
Um,
that is where I went to think. I went, if you're going to mutate a list,
yeah.
you're going to be in
So,
trouble.
this is the problem, right? So this is what I was just trying to get to, right? So this is going to, we're changing the value, but we're not actually, we're changing the contents of the value by changing an entry in the list, not the entire list itself. So value notified doesn't know that an entry inside the list has changed. So what we can actually do here is a couple of things. One, we could generate a completely new list from the old one. That's one way of doing this. Another way of doing it. So basically, then we'll do that in here. I think that's in the nature of what we're trying to do. This probably makes sense. So we'd say list.of, and we could then put. So let's take the list out of there and say local cards, right? And then we'll modify local cards. We can actually do this. I think look, list.of.
There's a dot in there somewhere.
Yeah. And
dot and remove, dot or add.
No, we're not, because I can't remove because it will append it, right? So I want to replace the existing one. So we always want to look at the index of the local card with the replacement. So now what we're doing here is we create local cards, we modify local cards, and then we set the new data on our value notifier to being the new list that we've made with the changes.
See, set remove, and you would have been done.
Set remove. I still have to get the list.
Well, no, that's because you're using a list. Order. That's what I'm saying. A set would have been done.
Well, no, still, because I still need to keep the order. Then I need a display tree set.
Oh, an order.
Yeah. This is just easier.
All right. Go ahead. Keep going.
Anyway, right. So now we haven't run it yet, so we should probably do that. But this replaced it with the matched ones, and in doing so, it updates the entire list. It actually updates it twice. Not great. There's other optimizations here, but you know what? Screw it. It's really basic. This is fine. All right. So
we'll
now
fix it in post. Fix it in
value. So we get the contents of the notifier. I think no more errors. We try and run it, see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Restarted. So click. Added card, whatever they are. Added this card.
Yeah.
They matched.
Or you just exit, or you somehow messed it up so that it changes the icon of the
right. But what we haven't done here is
look.
Now we're getting this.
We're getting a lot of people.
This is where we want to go, because they're not removing. Because when I flip them over, they get removed. Two matching again. Right. Let me do it again. But the point here is we haven't had the match that's actually working.
You're recording the proper state transitions, though. That's good.
No. What I want to explain is that probably matched them. But first of all, we didn't say that they matched, so we don't know that. So let's say matched, right? Right?
Yeah.
Also, to be clear, in that it changed the state, but we do nothing with the match flag. So now we need to go down and say they can no longer be flipped.
Yep.
And maybe I don't know. That's it. Just no longer flipped, right? So let's go down to our card here, and this will get rebuilt with the new card data. It'll keep its flip state. So we want to do a thing in here, which is did update widget. So this is when the parent widget got updated. We say if the widget data is now matched, then we always want to make sure that we are showing the front side, right? For some reason, let's say something messes up, that at least ensures that, right? So we could start the game with cards already flipped if we wanted to in this situation. Now, what we also want to do is when this match is set, we don't want the tapping to work. Now, we could disable inside the function, but we actually want to disable the inkwell and everything, so we do that here. So if it's matched, it's null, right? So we can also flip this condition. I prefer to see it flipped, so that if it's not matched, then we say it's clickable, right? So we'll put the little not symbol at the front. Or I could say another nice way of visually saying this is just equals false. So we would say if it's not matched, right? Now, if I restart, I should have hot reloaded because you would have seen them flip, right? But now if I tap 2, tick, people, no, they don't match. Now, at the moment, I have to flip them back, right? We'll get to that in a second. Let's try another one. Oh, here, ready? Matched. Now I can't click.
Yay.
I can still click.
Almost.
No, it broke.
Oh, so close.
So what will we do wrong? Let's see. So that would be because
you should publish this code. Oh, why is my ear?
So what happened there was that even though I made a value value notifier, we don't listen to the changes. We were not rebuilding the widgets when they changed. The widget did not know they got matched, and then I probably messed something else up. So what we actually need to do is I was using the list here, but we weren't listening to it. So that's actually the problem. So we need to wrap this with a value listenable builder. And our value listable is our app state all cards. And this will make a builder function. And inside that function, we chuck out, return our original child. Now, the value that we get here is actually all cards. So we can actually say, well, the contents of all cards, should we say.
Sure.
Now, let's restart. Let's try this again. Tick. This one. No, not a match. This one. No match. No, come on. My luck's run out. Oh, look, 2 ticks.
Yep.
Okay, so that didn't match because I've got 4, right? It should never get to this stage. Now, look.
Yeah.
Hang on. Now, flip this
now
one. Oh, they matched. Okay.
Oh.
So they flipped. They got updated, but I put them in the wrong. We put them in the wrong stuff here. Hang on.
Yeah.
So the starting state here, the starting state of the animation is if it's matched. So widget data matched, then it's 1. Otherwise, it's 0. Oops, question. Because then we start the end of the animation. Otherwise, when it rebuilds, it's reset in that situation, and then because we've got new data object. So let's try again. Come on. Oh, matched. Now that's interesting. Did I get that backwards, or did I? So the card matched. Oh, look, we got our score. No, we didn't put the score on the screen. Hang on. Hang on. Let's fix that one as well. Another value listable builder. Why not?
Sure. See, in my mind, I'm thinking all these are just ref watch this, ref watch that. You know, with RiverPod, much simpler. But it's good that you're showing the low-level mechanisms that are actually being used by something like this, you know, how RiverPod actually does it in terms of wiring up these connections and wiring up the rebuildings when those values change. Yeah.
Right. So
good stuff.
How is everyone? Have we still got people interested in this? I don't know.
There's still a few.
Well, let's see. Let's try this again. 1, 2. Oh. Okay, so clear this and hit that one. So here's the problem. It matched immediately, and then the animation was reset. Did I get my animation backwards? Did it? It feels like it's losing its animation state. And I think it's... Oh, it shouldn't. Oh, yeah, we've got some people still here.
We got some dedicated people still watching, yes.
Why are we losing our animation state? So first of all, if it was matched, that should have dropped completely to one side, 1 or 0. Did I mess this up and get it backwards? And then this is why. Let's just do this. I think actually that's correct. Actually, that is. Yeah. I don't know. Let's just try. So restart. No, because now I'm not. Oh, interesting.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So another
that's-
way to have designed this is to have a card that has all the data about one of the cards, and to have a card view object that is your presentation, and everything about animations on a view would be driven by the state of the card.
Well, that's what I'm doing. Well, I try and do.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not
Right.
working. Hang on. Let's do this. Hang on. When we get a match, if we don't get a match, hang on. Else, I want to say visible cards dot. I'm going to say 4 cards in visible list of.
My earbuds are dying. I'm swapping for a second. I'll be
right.
back.
I'm going to say cards dot high card. So that's gonna. Well, now we select 2. Yeah, I need to flip that around. Hang on. Damn it. Let's go all the way back down. Where are we? Here. I definitely just messed this up. So let's just fix this. So let's ignore this for a second. And this is this is interesting. You know why? I just realized. Show back. It's not getting triggered anymore because it's not animating. So when we flipped it, the back should be set. If it's matched, the show back should be set to false, right? But what's interesting is I think it's rebuilding the widget, and therefore it's losing the animation because it's matching immediately. Because we don't wait for the animation. When we do the matching on add, we don't wait. So for example, here, if we were to say make this async, don't do this, this is bad. But I would validate my hypothesis. So what we do is we can add to the list and then do await future. We wait for the animation of the card to flip, right? This is not the way to do this because, yeah, don't do this. But this is just a quick test. The point I'm saying here, by the way, is that now we don't have 2 sources of truth for the duration. Now, if I change the duration of the animation, it doesn't change here. All the app goes out wonky, right? What you want to do is actually wait for the event of the animation to finish and then add the card, right? And if that's the case, we'll do that in a minute. But let's see. So flip. Oh, didn't match. Good. Flip. No, this one. Interesting. So they matched, but they shown the wrong side. It's interesting because the animation stopped, and I would never expect the animations to stop. So the fact that we're replacing the data in all cards. You know why? I know exactly why. I know exactly what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we use the hash code as the key for the layout ID in our custom layout.
Oh.
We haven't overridden hash code, so this that's the problem here. So what we actually need to do, let's go back up. We're going to use the index in our layout. So where's our multi-card layout? So what's happening here is, we generate a new object, we get a new hash code, it rebuilds everything in the tree, we lose our local state from our cards. Now, so all we need to do is treat this as an indexed for loop. So we can do that a couple of different ways. That's interesting. Oh, look. Oh, my gosh.
What?
When did they add this? This is brilliant.
No. Oh, great. Yes. That's Dart 3. Dart 3 added that.
Yes. Look, it actually returns an iterable record of and this is brilliant. Oh, my God, I'm so happy. Sorry. There
goes another video. There's another video I have to redo now. Oh my God. Guess now we got
index card. Index card.
$1. It's $1, $2.
My constraints. It's just complaining because my SDK constraints on this test project haven't been updated. From the
it's gonna be 3.
Stuff I do. Hang on.
Okay.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. I'm so happy about that. Let's just
indexed. Indexed on a list. Oh, how nice. Oh, man.
Brilliant. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I just wanted that for so many years. Look at that. Index card. It's like, done.
We have a solution. We have a firing solution.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, this is fine. This is because
one ping only.
So we can fix that. Hang on. It's now looking for the wrong ID inside the layout. That's what the problem is there. So we do the same thing in here.
Wow.
We now need to rather than using the card data.
I've got to do a video on that. That's what I said. I got to do a video.
Well, we just want to use index. So
I'm putting that in my list.
Cards. We don't need that. Oh, cool. Look, index. Bomb. That. It's a card ID. Get rid of that. Look at that. Simplification. Even better. You start. Hey. Okay. So we see. Okay.
So coming soon to my screencast, there'll be a video on indexed. And because I'm allowed to post things here, please subscribe to my channel. Yes. What? Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, Hot Reload is having a little issue.
No.
We get this lovely power to send request, whatever that is.
What the hell is that?
I don't know what that is. Isolate something or other. Maybe I should hang on.
Isolates?
It's something to do with the framework itself. Hang on. Let me just try pub get, pub upgrade, and then I don't even know. Maybe it's dependencies.
Oh, geez. Oh, you're right, because you changed the
this is just like
Dart
a
version, right?
test package. I don't know. Yeah. Let's just see what we get going on here, though. Let's run it again. I might need to do a Flutter clean. That could be the other problem here. Because changing your Dart version is to ripping out the brains of something living and replacing them, which, yeah, as you can imagine, is messy. Let's see if it. All right, no errors coming out of the console at the moment. Let's see how we go. All right, so where were we? Yeah, we were trying to. Okay, so flip card. Hey, matched. Look, and the score went up. Hey, look, it's working as I designed it. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's interesting. So when I matched, the cards never got removed. Oh, right, because they're flipped, but they need to get removed from card interface still. So actually, this hide card needs to happen either way, right? So if it's matched or not matched, we should hide the cards after two. All right. Try this again. Also, we need to get rid of that delay. Right, let's try again. Flip, 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 flip. Oh. Huh? Remove card. Why are you doing remove card? I don't like that. I've messed this entirely up. They are matched, but they're not flipped over. I'm done. Oh dear. I'm like, it's too long. We've been going for way too long now. Let's do something a bit earlier next time. Because look, this should never get to this stage, should it?
Yeah. Well,
did I not do a hot restart? Let me do a hot restart. Just check. So look, let's just. Yeah. Oh, you know why? It's just delay.
Oh.
I'm not. Hang on. Because if I'm not patient, then.
Oh yeah, you're flipping ahead of the time that it's switching back. Yeah.
So look, but when I tapped on it a second time, as soon as it gets flipped back. Oh, I'm an idiot. Hang on. I commented out a line of code, didn't I? Where was it? Here.
Mm-hmm.
If it's matched. Yeah, it's something like that. Stuff. So they matched, and then they still got hidden, right? So that's why they're getting reversed. So hide card, we need a hide card, but also need to remove the card. So I think the key here is to separate that logic above. Where is it here? So that if it's not matched, then it hides the cards, right? Otherwise, we're removing those cards. We're doing essentially doing remove card, which is just removing them from visible cards now. So we're just doing this twice, right? For it's actually a replacement of first and second because they're now in there. So we actually need card data to be returned. Return. Just so we can actually now just say, actually, you know what? Replace card. It removes them from visible cards. There you go. Problem solved. So local, yeah. So this is actually going to remove the original from this. Ah, that's the next problem. Of course, when you did remove,
Right.
it's okay. I see what the problem here is now. Sorry, let me come back. Oh, it's card interface we're removing, isn't it? So we actually need to we just clear because there's only two, right? Yeah. So if they're matched, then it clears. Okay, cool. Ignore me. This should be flipped cards or something like that, not visible cards now. To be honest, it's flipped. Like these are like not matched. These are like the ones that are currently being flipped, right? And then this is like add flip cards, remove flip card or something, right? I don't know. That's really bad, but whatever. Remove flip card. All right, let's just try this. Restart. See how we go. It can only break, right? Facebook. Oh, okay. They matched. I can no longer click on them, but they are facing the wrong way. No. So, why did they? Oh no, because that's where I had that. Did I have that in? They've definitely rebuilt, and if they're matched, we're at the end of the animation. But here it's going in reverse. That's why this should actually be going forward. I got that wrong. All right, so save. There we go. Perfect. All right, next. No, this one. Yeah, this one. No.
Well, look at that. That's pretty much done. Uh-oh. Well, there we go.
No, matched. Again, I'm not being patient for our little delay, I think, and it's or
why didn't it click immediately though? That's interesting.
I know what's going on here. We remove flip card only happens when you tap, right? It doesn't do it when it gets hidden. No, it does do it when it's hidden. I'm confused. Hang on. The tap, remove card. Tap, add card. Tap, remove card. Add card. Ah!
What was it?
Look, 2 sets of the same icon. That's the problem we need to deal with as well. When we randomly pick them, it can actually randomly pick the same icon twice.
Yeah, well, that was always true.
Was it?
Yeah, you never seemed to be upset about it before, is it? But it's messing up your algorithm, huh? Because you're matching an icon, right? So of course,
yeah. Well, you can match
the wrong one out of the
pair,
list,
right?
Yeah.
Also, we don't have a win condition here, right? So we don't say, "Oh, they're all matched."
Yeah.
So as soon as you've matched, we want a win condition, and then we could then change the state to win. All right. Well, look, I think that's enough for today. I think we've.
Yeah.
I'm going to update the gist with the contents. Let's do that now.
Right.
And then, if anyone wants to have a play around and continue our journey,
this is
you can
a
do
longer than 3-hour tour again.
Oh, don't close your eyes. Close your eyes.
3-hour tour.
I'm going to update the flip cards just now.
Yeah.
And then everyone can go download it if they want to continue and fix the bugs. And then learn like all of us.
Give it new features.
I.
And thanks for everybody stopping by today and sticking it out to the end of this. We like doing this. That's why we do it. And we like to share what we know. And we like to find out new things from y'all too, because sometimes we find out stuff in this show, which is cool.
All right, let's post this in the chat. There's a link.
You'll put it in the description too, right? Eventually.
Yep, I put it in last week's description, so I didn't forget. So I'll put it in this week's description as well.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And we will see you same time, same place next week, I guess.
164 hours from now.
Yeah, we spent way too long. All right. Ciao. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.